Well, a terrific Thursday afternoon. How are you? Welcome to the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. We are coming to you live on Sports 1440, AM radio, streaming, sports1440.ca. If you have, maybe you're listening on the Stingray app, radio player, or iHeartRadio apps, it's crystal clear there. If the statica is a little too much at times, just download the app. You won't regret it. And, of course, you can watch the show live on Oilers Nation YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. It's good. We've gained a lot of subscribers here in the first 7 days. So let's keep it up because, hey, we'll have some prizes for you for sure. There's always a benefit. And the more subscribers, better it is for us, better it is for you. So tell a friend, give them a nudge, just say hit the button. It's pretty easy. It's very, very easy. We have loads to get to today. Number one, text us in our Jiffy Lube inbox. 833-401-1440 is where you can get us on the text line on your phone. You can always email us, Gregor at sports1440.ca or Connor at sports1440.ca in the Jiffy Lube inbox, where right now you get a full synthetic Pennzoil oil change, and you will receive a $20 digital gift card for one of 30 local vendors. Support local, support Jiffy Lube, jiffylubeservice.ca. I am Jason Gregor. He is Connor Halley. We've got lots to get to in the lineup today. Of course, it's Thursday, so Terry Ryan will be joining us 3:00 today. So TR, this guy's like the man of international mystery. He's doing lots of different things. He's also a stunt man. Yeah, he stars in shows. So he was today, he was all morning, he was doing some stunts for an upcoming movie. So we'll talk to TR about that. What a classic. What an absolute classic. I love it. Livingston will be by. Usually he's here at 3:40, but today's going to be here at 2:40 because he is on, got a flight at around 6:00, so didn't want to wait and push it a little bit tight. So he will join us an hour earlier for the racing report. Also, Pete Bercich will join us. We'll talk a little NFL. He's a former Vikings player and coach, currently an analyst for the Vikes, as they are looking to defeat Philly tonight. Thursday nighter. Look at the receiving core. Jefferson, Addison. That is quite the dangerous duo, I would think. So, and with the injury in the secondary to the Eagles, and then Jefferson obviously getting the best corner, don't sleep on Addison tonight. Don't sleep on him if you're a fantasy. Think about it. Also, Bronte will be by. It's Thursday. We'll get to Ryan's rant in the 4:00 hour. Spec will be by. Tony Marinaro will join us as we go around the NHL. We'll stop in Montreal. How healthy is Mr. Caulfield? Some offseason changes for the Habs. How much are they going to improve? It's a big question. How much will they improve? We will find out. Obviously, they moved out Jeff Petrie, made a few other moves, so we'll find out there. We'll also get to the fantasy report later on. Ryan Marsh will join us. AJHL kicks off. You have the Crusaders at home this weekend. Also, the Saints at home Friday night. Spruce Grove, Sherwood Park. It's going to be good. Also, high school football is on. The Golden Bears football team is 2-0. Could talk a little junior football. Huskies and the Wildcats. Huskies defeating the Wildcats last weekend, in fact. So we'll sprinkle that in throughout the show. Of course, the Young Guns tournament. They're out in Penticton, and it gets going tomorrow for the Edmonton Oilers. The main group guys that have been skating, they'll continue to do some, quote, captain skates. Obviously, McDavid and Draisaitl haven't been there for the last few days. They were in Vegas or the NHL tour. Also coming up tomorrow, Elks Rough Riders. It's a big game. Obviously, Edmonton's playoff hopes are rather slim, but a victory over Saskatchewan gives them some opportunity to say, hey, you never know. Obviously, if they lose, I think it's pretty much done. But you win that game, and now you're close. And, especially if Hamilton loses to Winnipeg, which seems likely, then all of a sudden, could be a little bit of a playoff run here, potentially, for the Edmonton Elks. Now, a non-sports topic, but I want to mention this because this is potentially huge. And when you think about sports athletics, think about how much has changed since you were a kid. If you're older, I don't care. If you're 30, there's been so much advancement for kids from when you played. If you're 50, it's mind-blowing. From obviously the training, the equipment, everything else, but nutrition. And the more you can talk studies, there's actually been studies showing that there's so much chemicals in some of our food, it's leading to making more worse cases of ADHD and autism. It's awful, right? There's what you put in your body impacts it. If you put diesel in your gas car, does it work as well? No, it doesn't. And today in California, the California legislature passed the bill AB 418, which is the Food Safety Act in California, and it will ban the use of 4 food chemicals: propyl paraben, potassium bromate, red dye number 3, and brominated vegetable oil. Now, the governor has to approve it till it goes through, but if this goes through, hopefully this is the start. If there's one industry that could use a little bit of improvement, what we put in our food and what people allow in your food, it's a problem. Right? And hey, a lot of people, you want to be able to go shopping without have to spend 20 minutes reading all of the ingredients. Half of them, you're just like, what? What is this stuff? So I think this is fantastic. I've really been kind of on the food train for a while here the last few years, reading up on lots of different things and all of the side effects and the long-term health effects from some of the stuff we're ingesting. And it's never really been talked about publicly. I don't get why our leaders, they just repeat the same things. Oh, let's not raise taxes. Yeah. Can you tell me the last time we haven't raised taxes? Is there anybody that doesn't raise taxes? It just happens, right? But they focus on it all the time. So just me. Maybe none of you care, and that's okay. But what you eat matters. And if we can eliminate some chemicals from the grocery store, I think it's going to be better for everybody overall. Better for athletes, better for you. Just, you know what? Sitting at home, you're relaxing. Good. It's awesome. So you can text us 833-401-1440. It's the text line. Hey, guys, I know it's way too early, but where would you say the Oilers finish? Regular season and playoffs, early prediction. Well, yeah, you're right. How about let's get through the regular season and the Oilers are making the playoffs. That's my very confident. I can't say right now. And the thing is, predictions are fun, but if you say in October, I think the Oilers are going to win the Stanley Cup. Okay, they might. But the truth is, we're talking 7 months. One key injury can derail lots of teams. So I'll just say this. The Oilers, lock it, are a playoff team. I actually think the Oilers are going to win the division. I can't go as far as to say they're going to win in the playoff. I need to see what acquisitions do they make at the deadline, because they're going to make some. I don't think there's any debate on that. So that's kind of where I would come out on where the Oilers are. They're going to be good. And I understand that Oiler fans, you're kind of not used to that. The Oilers, now last year they were good. The year before they were pretty good. So it takes some people time to change their habits and their thought process on things. So the good news, I think the Oilers are going to be very, very competitive. Now, even if Edmonton has a key injury in the regular season, I don't think it derails them enough to not make the playoffs. So that's where I come out on the Oilers. As far as playoffs go, where they're going to go, we'll see. Hey, Gregor, Toronto fans are getting ready for the NHL season by booing the Jays off the field. It will be a common theme with the Leafs. I don't think so. Not in the regular season. I expect the Maple Leafs to be a playoff team. Now, can they win in the playoffs? I'll be curious to see what Brad Treliving does, because if I look at Toronto, my one area of concern would be their blue line. That would be my area of concern. But going into last season for the Edmonton Oilers, a lot of people are like, yeah, blue line, a little bit of a concern. And then look what they did. They added Matthias Ekholm. That's a pretty big addition. So Will they add another one this year? Maybe Edmonton will, but I would think Toronto could possibly look at it. So, Gregor, what we eat matters, but I don't trust policymakers with no knowledge of agriculture to make those calls. Yeah, but you're confusing two different things, right? If you're banning chemicals from food, tell me how's that a negative? They're not asking you to change, the seeds you're using. They're just saying they don't want, propol. They don't want bromate in it, right? Do you need that? That would be my question. So I think that there's, trust me, there's lots of people in agriculture that know how to make things that are healthy for people to eat. That I think in 2023, that's been proven that there's a lot of good stuff you can do. You have to, now we could have a whole conversation about our political system and why it probably needs to change. Because you think about it, we have made leaps and bounds of improvements in lots of different things, advancements in a lot of things, but our whole system really hasn't changed when it comes to how people get in positions, to make those type of decisions, and then who ultimately can even make some of the decisions. Now, we're not a political show, so we won't get into it. But just my one simpleton opinion would be, if you're the Minister of Education, I would like you to be somebody who spent a lot of time in the education system. I don't even care what party you're from. That would just be me. I think it would be beneficial because you would have a good understanding. Think about a private company and how lots of people, they start, especially, let's say, your dad or your mom owned a company. And then when you were 20, you started working for them. The smart companies say, okay, you know what? You're going to learn from the ground up, and you're going to start at the bottom, and then you're going to work up to the next level, and then the next, and you're going to understand everything about our company. So if when you're 40 or 45 and I retire and you want to take over, well, now you understand the company inside and out. It's been proven that helps. So why wouldn't we do it for our education system or our health system? Just, that's my only random question of the day on a. And trust me, it has nothing to do with the party, okay? Don't make it about left or right. That's irrelevant. It's not what it's about. It should be across the board to say, okay, if this party gets in power, this will be the person in charge of this. This will be the person in charge of that. That'll be the person in charge of that. And I'd actually go as far as to say, I think it's a really hard job. And I think if they got paid more, you would get better applicants to do it. It's a pretty important job, is it not? So why would be so opposed to, attracting better quality candidates? So, like, if you're a business person and you've been in business lots and you've made a good living on it, do you want to necessarily, be a finance minister? Pretty hard job. Not a lot of benefits at the time. Now, I know you get long-term pension, and that's nice, but that's just my thoughts. So we'll see. Hey, Gregor, let's discuss the real issues. How bad is Calgary going to be this season? Aaron the Chef. Yeah, the Flames are an interesting one to me. I don't, because Markstrom's being Jekyll and Hyde. Which one's going to turn up this year? Is it the guy who's an 890 save percentage, or is it the guy who's a 922 save percentage? That's a pretty significant difference. Like that, and like he's kind of the poster child right now to the uncertainty of goaltending, the unpredictability of goaltending. If any of you out there, like, I wonder if you say, write down your top 10 goalies who you think are going to be in the top 10 in save percentage this upcoming season. We should try it before the season starts, and we'll see everybody's list of top 10. And then you watch and see how different it is. Like, there's a few obvious ones. Like, if you put in Sorokin and Shesterkin, we're probably like, yeah, I think there's a pretty good chance. But every year, there's 4 or 5 or 6 that are in there that you didn't expect, and 4 or 5 or 6 you expect to be there that aren't there. Well, Vasilevsky probably be a guy that on most people's lists. But it's tough, man. It's very tough. When we come back, the Thursday nighter. Eagles, Vikings. Is Goddard going to get a ball? Is he going to actually catch one pass tonight? I hope so. We'll see. We'll discuss that with the former Vikings player and coach next on the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440, live on Oilers Nation YouTube, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated gambling website, features a variety of responsible gambling tools such as a time clock, deposit limits, and more.
Made with
Remember,
100
if you gamble
To have some fun.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Oh, a little good tune going back in time, Connor Halley. I like it. Thursday after 9. Ooh, it's a little that's from the Batman soundtrack, was it not? Is it Batman? Am my memory wrong on that? I thought it was. Right?
Trying to think of famous musicians from Minnesota.
When Jack Nicholson was the Joker, pretty sure it was in. Oh, hey, are you kidding me? Prince. He's probably the most famous musician from there. Is he not?
I mean, he's the only one I can think of.
Well, there's got to be others, but he'd have to be the most talented one. That guy was. I was lucky enough to see him live in concert. And not only could he sing, but man, he was a musician. He could play so many different instruments. It was unreal. Guitar, and then he's on the piano. Oh, God, he was good. On the drums. Whoa.
Bob Dylan, also from Minnesota.
Oh, there you go.
So, yeah.
Very different. Very different style.
Yeah.
Very different style. Let's get to our NFL report now. Brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling, where the rates never change. No overtime charges. Your furnace conk out tonight? Don't worry. Middle of the night, call Legacy. They'll come in. No overtime charges. That's how you build a legacy at legacyheating.ca. And it is the Thursday nighter. The Vikings taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. And man, there is some talent on both offensive sides of the football, also on the defensive side, but some potential for some fireworks offensively, as we are joined by current radio analyst of the Vikings, of course, a former linebacker with the Vikes, defensive coach as well. Pete Bercich joins us. Pete, welcome to the show. First of all, do you have a favorite artist from Minnesota?
Yeah, you guys mentioned the two big ones. My favorite's probably Urge Overkill.
Oh,
They kind of made their in the 90s, early 90s. They did a lot in Chicago. They were very popular in Chicago, but they are from Minnesota. So Bob Dylan, Prince, yes, but then Urge Overkill would probably be my favorite.
Now, Pete, when you were playing for the Vikes, of them all, yeah. When you were playing for the Vikes, there wasn't Thursday night football. I'm pretty sure there wasn't it anyway. And so, like you've seen it now for a few years. You talk to the players. Do they like it, or is this just like, are they just used to it now? Where you get an extra few days off after, but man, I would assume leading up to this one, there's times where it can be pretty tough.
Well, I had the opportunity to play in 2 games on Thanksgiving. So you get used to, I've been through the short week, and it's unbelievably short. I just think that it's the timing in the season. If they didn't do these all year, but maybe the second half of the year, which I don't know how they would do that, but it's very early in the season to ask teams, especially teams that have a lot of rookies, guys who are, inexperienced, haven't been around, to digest and implement an entire game plan in 3 or 4 days. I mean, literally, you play Sunday, you have Monday off, you have full day Tuesday, and then you're flying out on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So I think the quality of the game suffers, especially early in the season. You start getting into November and December, I think teams, they have enough games under their belts. They've done enough things. But there's just a lack, you really have to carry over much of the game plans, both sides, both Philadelphia and from Minnesota, of what they did on Sunday, and really to be able to execute anything. So I think the games sometimes suffer, especially they've been very one-sided, especially in the beginning of the year. And I think teams that have just more physical talent and more depth do better in these games because of the lack of game planning that goes into it.
Vikings analyst Pete Bercich joins us. Pete, as a former linebacker, you were in the era where the running back was like the main focus in the offense. They're pounding the ball. Linebackers are, racking up tackles, and it was physical. And it's still a very physical game, but it's obviously changed a ton. And I like running back, how they used to be revered. It's amazing how much it's changed. But when you watch the linebackers, I like talking to guys who played a specific position. When you watch today's linebackers, just how much different stylistically is it? Obviously, you still got to be able to wrap guys up, but is there more of an emphasis on mobility rather than physicality from your linebacker today?
Yeah, I would say that's kind of the way it's gone, because the game is so wide open now. If you're a linebacker that can't cover one-on-one, they'll find a way, right? They'll find a way to get you one-on-one with the running back, or get a pass out in space. I mean, the short passes become as consistent as a handoff, a long handoff used to be. So yes, the physical ability has become more and more important as this game is more and more spread out. But physicality is still very, very important. And the running back position, I just think there's going to be an ebb and flow. And the lack of importance of a running back, it depends on the offense. If you have a Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, if you have one of these quarterbacks who can scramble, keep plays alive, and then make something happen down the field, not just a running quarterback, but I'm talking about one that that would scramble to keep play alive. Justin Fields is, he's a scrambling quarterback, but once he starts to scramble, you don't worry about him throwing down the field. Guys like Aaron Rodgers back in the day, right? He'd scramble, keep a play alive, and then burn you deep. Those teams I don't think necessarily need to have that dominant running game. That running game doesn't need to be part of their offense. It's the teams that have young quarterbacks or have quarterbacks that are not necessarily going to be able to carry the entire team on their shoulders. Those teams are still going to need a running game. And it's, what's old is new in the NFL. And I think that there's going to be somebody or some team out there that's going to, revive that running back position and dwell on that running back position. And, the ability to run the football, although it's not very entertaining, but it's like the running game is like putting money in the bank, right? You may not be getting, 15, 20-yard plays early in the game. What you're doing, you're wearing down the defense. You're wearing down those defensive linemen. And then when you get to the third and fourth quarters, when you have to move the chains, right? And one of the biggest stats from the Vikings Tampa Bay game a week ago, outside of the -3, which you can't win a lot of games -3, Tampa Bay ran 20 in the last 10 minutes and 40 some seconds or 30 some seconds of the game. Tampa Bay ran 25 plays. The Vikings ran 6. We couldn't even get a first down. Why is that? Well, when you're not running the football and you don't have an effective running game, it's difficult to do. So I don't think the running back position might be a little devalued right now, but I don't think it's going to die. And I do not think it's going to go away.
So, Pete, let's look at the matchup. Matchups are always intriguing in football. You look at the receivers. Obviously, Jefferson, if it's not him, then it's Jamar Chase. They're the two best receivers in the league. Tyreek Hill's very unique too, but Jefferson is just, he's ridiculous. But then you throw in young Addison now, and he had a pretty good NFL debut last week. Sorry, not debut, but season opener for him last week. And then you look, considering the injury in the secondary to Philly, I'm assuming Jefferson's going to get their best corner, and that should open up potentially a big night for Addison. How do you look at the matchup wise for the receivers to this secondary?
Well, I think that Justin Jefferson's going to draw Darius Slay whenever they can, right? So that's something that's going to be there. The Jordan Addisons of the world, KJ Osbornes of the world are going to be going against not James Bradbury, who's in concussion protocol, and I don't think he's playing tonight.
Yeah.
But I think TJ Hawkinson is going to be a big part of this game plan, only because that's exactly what New England did. They used some play action. They used a lot of in-breaking routes to take advantage of Philadelphia safeties. And knowing that and seeing that Reed Blankenship, their starting safety, is going to be out. Sidney Brown, I believe, or Justin Evans will replace them. And by the way, Nakobe Dean is out as well. So Christian Ellis will be starting there at that position. Wow. I mean, I think you have just a ton of opportunity in the middle of the field all throughout this game. And that could be, it could mean a big night for a guy like TJ Hawkinson. So yeah, Jefferson's obviously the guy, and they're going to want to take him away. So I think guys like Hawkinson maybe Addison, KJ Osborne. Those guys are going to have a lot of opportunities tonight, and we're going to need them.
When you look at the defense and of the Vikings tonight, is there one or two matchups you see to say, okay, these are key matchups that if they're going to slow down this Eagles offense, these are the guys who have to have big games?
Overall, their offensive line is pretty much the same as it was a year ago. Cam Jurgens has taken over at right guard for them. They pass protect very, very well. They're not necessarily road graders, in that term where they're just driving guys off the ball, but they protect very, very well. And so I think just our defensive line, and can we get Jalen Hurts to scramble? Can we get him out of the pocket? Not on designs like rollouts and bootlegs, but I'm talking about when Jalen Hurts drops back. Are we going to be able to get someone in his face and get him to get out to the edge and pull the football down and make, do other things? And I think if the Vikings D line can do that, now will we use linebackers and safeties as well in pressure? Yes, I think that's the one thing that's changed. The main thing that's changed is we don't just line up in that same 3-4 shell and just play coverages behind it. I mean, last week we blitzed, I believe, over 40% of the time, but probably 80% of the time we showed something. We had all these guys at the line of scrimmage. We were showing something. That's to try to confuse the offensive lineman and just get a fraction of a second where a defensive lineman can gain an advantage. So we're going to show a lot of blitz tonight. You have to be with a guy like Jalen Hurts at quarterback. When the running back's next to him, what they call a sidecar, not behind it, but next to him, that's where you're going to get all the options and the counters and the powers and all the other different things. But everybody has to be very responsibility sound. That's what happened to us last year is they started running the straight up option and guys didn't know who they had, and Hurts was just running all over the place. So, you got to be very tuned in from a responsibility standpoint with this group. And then obviously you got to stop AJ Brown. So Caleb Evans, Byron Murphy will probably shadow him, but that's tough duty right there. AJ Brown's a very, very good receiver.
How, in the final 10 minutes, you had 6 plays offensively. The thing is about Kirk Cousins completed 75% of his passes. He was 33 out of 44. He had the second most passing yards. I think he had the second most completions. So they couldn't get a first down late, but it was working before. So obviously this offense is, I think, going to run mainly on the arm and the hands of the receivers, which is fine. But what did you see? What changed? Because if you look at their numbers up until the first 50 minutes of the game, you're like, man, they completed a lot of passes and it was very effective. Yeah. What changed?
Well, I just think the change was, there were some completions to, tight end screens and some other play action type plays that didn't net us any yards. In fact, a couple of completions were for negative yards. So yes, they're completions, but they're not down the field.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. They're negative, or they're just not, it's in Tampa Bay blitzed us. Tampa Bay blitz more, was the number one team percentage wise in blitz last week. We were number 2. So we saw more blitzing on the field than anybody else across the league did. And so you have to, if you live by the blitz, you die by the blitz, meaning you got to beat them deep. You got to get those corners off. You got to, you really have to take advantage of that stuff. And our protection from a responsibility standpoint wasn't there the entire time. So we were just getting these negative yardage plays. So when it wasn't so my point is the incompletions weren't just incompletions. We're talking a sack with a forced fumble. We're talking one interception. So the mistakes that were made were big ones. They forced us into making some big mistakes, and you just can't do that tonight. You especially can't do it against a team like Philadelphia.
So one last one for you. Give me your thoughts on, you talked about how Jalen Hurts, and he's a very unique quarterback. And there's lots of quarterbacks like that now today, guys who can throw the ball 350 yards if they want, but then they can also rush for 100 yards in their sleep, right? They're very athletic. And, we talked earlier about the linebackers needing mobility. If you look at just the O-line, D-line matchups, a lot of times it doesn't get any fanfare, but mainly, if you're one team that wins the trench battle, you ultimately win the game. How do you see the Vikings D-line man-to-man against this O-line of the Eagles? Is this a good matchup or a tough matchup?
Well, I think it's going to be a tough matchup, and like I said, I think they're very, very good in pass protection. Running wise, we'll see if they can move our guys. Dean Lowry, we picked up from Green Bay. Harrison Phillips had 8 tackles last week. It's the most that he's had since he's been a Viking. Jonathan Bullard. The other thing is getting Marcus Davenport on the field. He missed the opener with an ankle injury, so hopefully we'll have his physical presence out there too. Jalen Hurts, I would say, can do things that no other quarterback in the league can, meaning that he can run, but at the same time, he's able to, his accuracy down the field and getting the football to A.J. Brown. So thank God we don't run into talents like this, I think, every week. You usually get like the Justin Fields of the world who can run. You want to make that guy throw, or, you're facing someone that can throw and can't really run, like Kirk Cousins. So Jalen Hurts is a very good combo, I think, of, he's very complete, and teams can use him in any way that they want. I think Brian Johnson, their new offense coordinator, is being a little bit more conservative with him than they were a year ago. But you don't know. That could all change tonight. So it's going to be, to me, I hope it's going to be a great game. But we already talked about the short week and how that affects it. So who knows what's going to happen tonight, man. I would not want to be betting anything on tonight's game, because I think it's going to be a complete flyer. It's going to be a one-off. It's going to be, it could go a million different directions.
Is Goddard going to get a catch tonight?
Yeah, I would think that's a safe prop bet if you got one out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see a guy like him not catch the ball for. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's what New England did, right? I mean, New England had a really good game plan against them. So hopefully, we can do the same. Do the same thing, or try to keep the ball out of the hands of some of their better athletes, like they did. So. Brian Flores did coach in New England for a long time, so hopefully he was able to garner some information off that film, and we can replicate some of it. But again, we'll see. Short week.
Pete, really appreciate your time. Enjoy the game tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good luck. Take care.
That's a former Vikings player and coach, now radio analyst, Pete Bercich, joining us as the Vikings in Philly to take on the Eagles tonight. That was the NFL report brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling. Thursday edition of the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, your place to try instant laundries. You want to try games, in-game prop betting. They have it all. Check it out. It's a new one. They also have a new feature, the Boost. And it gives you odds for kind of unique little things like, they have it tonight, pretty good odds if you think the Eagles can win by 14. Or will the second quarter be the high-scoring quarter? Check it out at PlayAlberta.ca. An hour early, but the same good information. We will have the racing report next on the Gregor Show on Sports 1440 and live on Oilers Nation YouTube.
At The Brick, we're not just proud of this city and its rich sports history. We're proud partners of it. The Brick started right here in Edmonton over 50 years ago. And when we're not cheering on the Oilers and Oil Kings live at the game, or the Edmonton Elks under the bright stadium lights, we're in our stores, providing everything you need to cheer them on in your home. The Brick, supporting Edmonton sports teams and fans since 1971, saving you more.
Our cars are our lifeline, and every now and then we need to take care of them too. Cochran's Automotive services your vehicle with pride. When you need to fix it up, bring the whole family fleet. Junior's WRX, Mom's MPV, Dad's 1500, or even Grandpa's old 88. All makes and models are welcome. Trust Cochran's Automotive to professionally repair your family's pride and joy. Beat the heat and let Cochran's Automotive recharge your AC. Call 780-452-5001.
You've got a go-to coffee spot, a trusted barber, even a lucky game day jersey. But when it's about looking your absolute best, there's only one name you need. Mr. Dirk. Family run since 1939, we're experts in crafting impeccable tailor-made suits and offering a wide variety of everyday styles. Pair that with personalized one-on-one fittings and the convenience of on-site tailoring. Mr. Dirk elevates your style game. Visit our Edmonton store or explore MrDirk.com. Score big on style with Mr. Dirk.
A solid financial plan is made up of more than just investments. Investments are an important part, but you need a more comprehensive approach. Andy Akel at Weird Pearson Akel & Associates Private Wealth Management understands that. He can help build a plan that includes retirement, estate planning, personal insurance, tax strategies, and yes, investments. Talk to him today and see the difference a real financial plan makes. Weird Pearson Akel & Associates. Call 780-988-4119 or visit weirdadvisoryteam.com.
The NFL lives at the Canadian Brew House with killer prizes and $1 off tankards of Bud and Bud Light every game day. Enter to win a tailgate barbecue box every Monday night. Thursdays, a chance at the NFL home opener of your choice next season. And a CBH NFL hoodie could be yours on Sundays. Plus, the ultimate sports trip of a lifetime for 2 to the Super Bowl. Up your odds and enter every time you catch the NFL action at the Canadian Brew House.
When it comes to your canola fields, yield is one of your top priorities. To help you maximize it, InVigor Hybrid Canola from BASF offers a full lineup of high-performing hybrids. And new for 2024, every one includes our patented pod shatter reduction technology for unmatched harvest flexibility and exceptional results, which helps take care of your priorities outside the field. Daddy! Talk to your retailer early to book your InVigor seed.
Your old furnace can die in the blink of an eye, so why take that chance this winter? Eric Mikowski here, head of the family at Furnace Family. The time for a new furnace is now. Not only will you have peace of mind on those cold winter nights, you will save money on those super expensive gas bills. Unsure? Furnace Family can come check your furnace, and if you buy a new one from us, the check is free. Daikin has an industry-leading lifetime warranty on their heat exchangers. It could be the last furnace you ever buy. Visit furnacefamily.com. Jingle time.
Done right, day or night, furnacefamily.com.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Afternoon. Man, week's flying by. It's Positive Friday tomorrow. Woo, I love it. Hope you're having a great week. Good Thursday. Maybe we're going to watch the game tonight. Brandon will be live at the Brew House in Manning. So all of you on the northeast side of Edmonton, check it out. Great opportunities. I got great specials all the time. More importantly, you could win a trip for two to the Super Bowl. Like, think about how much a Super Bowl ticket is worth now. That's a huge prize. Huge prize. So check it out tonight. See Brandon. See how he's doing. Congratulate him. He's doing very well in his first 2 weeks, running lots of stuff behind the scenes. Attaboy Brando. Let's get to the race report. Usually we always do it at 3:40 on Thursdays, but our guest has a flight a little bit earlier because he's got a race. So we had to move it an hour earlier as we get to the race report, brought to you by Cantork. They've continued developing tools and are excited to announce their newest design, the battery-powered nut runners. 4 models from 500 to 3,000 foot-pounds with more on the way. Check it out, cantork.com, as Colin Livingston joins us once again. And where are you jetting off to this weekend?
Tonight I'm off to Toronto for a change. I'm bringing my suitcase with no racing stuff. I got my cousin's getting married this weekend.
Oh, well, so, there you go. Big family wedding.
Yeah,
nice.
It's I have almost no connection with my paternal side of the family, but these are the guys that we stayed pretty close with.
Okay. Now, will there be like awkward speeches at the wedding, or is it going to be a good family wedding?
I have no idea because I don't know her side of the family, the bride side at all. And I don't know how many of my side of the family made the cut to get in there. So if my side's there, I know there's going to be a lot of consumption, and then that will likely lead to a couple of interesting speeches.
Nice. IndyCar. This has been the most watched IndyCar in 12 years. Like it's been an exciting season for them, no question. I think it helps because there were so many different people winning early on in the season. This past weekend, it was just like they were all like, you know what? we're here to win, and we're all the unwritten rules. And some people say, well, if it's unwritten, it's not a rule.
Yeah.
But it was chaos this past weekend.
Yeah, I mean, racing is always about give and take. And, I don't care if it's go-karts, if it's IndyCar, if it's NASCAR, especially in the early part of the race. The cliche is you can't win the race on the first lap, but you can lose it. So generally speaking, if somebody's a little bit aggressive, you let them go, because causing an incident in the early laps doesn't do anyone any good, and the guy's maybe a little bit more aggressive now, but he's going to chew his tires up, and you're going to wear him down over time. Like you said, this race at Laguna Seca, it was just a free for all. I mean, there were so many cautions, so much, almost I want to say it was almost a third of the race. At least a quarter of the race was under caution, because right from the opening lap, these guys are like, gloves are off. We've been giving all year. Now we're going to take. And when everyone starts taking, then, you start getting this mess.
Well, there was incidents in pit row.
Yeah.
But now, granted, I'm not the most informed racing guy. But was there not a mistake in when they waved the green flag?
Well, I wouldn't say it was a mistake, but I think IndyCar needs to really look at this, because what they were doing, the last two corners at Laguna Seca, is this downhill, crazy, high-speed right-hand corner, followed by a really, really slow left onto the main straightaway. I forgot we have cameras here, and I'm actually talking with my hands, so that plays to my strength. But what they were doing is, normally they wait until the cars are on the straightaway when you can see the flag person. They throw the green, the leader generally controls it, and then away they go. They were throwing it as they came out of the second last corner. These guys are racing up to a corner. They're under green, so now they're racing. The tires are cold, the tires are dirty, and there was just pandemonium. Guys were getting run off the track. Guys were rear-ending each other. It was crazy. I don't know.
Basically early. Was when they're
way early. Yeah. And when you're trying to come up to those kinds of corners that are so slow, these are great drivers, but when great drivers decide that they're going to flip the switch off and they're going to go, I was going to say something I can't say, when they go, full idiot, it really kills the show. Like, these guys have put on such a great season. They've done, the racing's been great. You never knew who was going to win week in, week out. You never knew what was going to happen lap to lap. And then, this wasn't the best. Although one of the standouts was our old friend, Scotty Dixon, Scotty D. Man, what a performance he put on.
Yeah, it's pretty good career for him. He's not going to catch Paolo, but still, that was quite the race.
Yeah.
Now we switch over to F1, and it's one of the 4 night races coming up in Singapore this weekend. Is night racing better from a driver perspective, or is it harder because of the lights?
Boy, I think it's more difficult because Singapore is extremely well lit, and not.
It looks great on TV too.
Not because it's bright, but they use lights the right way, that they don't cast a lot of shadows. But the track is very visible. And they run it at night for a couple of reasons, because of course, heat, but it doesn't really get cooler at night. You just don't have the influence of the sun. But of course, then we get more primetime viewing in Europe and then in North America. It'll probably be an early morning for us, but it'll be like midday for Europe. So you get more eyes on the screens. But, compared to the other races, Singapore just stands out. Even with Vegas later on this year is going to be a night race. And Vegas obviously has a lot of, visual attraction, but I don't think they're going to come close to what Singapore does.
No, it'd be difficult. Like, that race does look phenomenal to watch it. Now, Max Verstappen, obviously he doesn't lose right now. He's won every race, but he's never won in Singapore. So there is something for him to, it's looking like he could, basically coast to a championship right now, but he's never won there.
Yeah.
Now, is that just coincidence, or has he struggled in this track? Is it the heat? What's the reason why? Like, I know it doesn't mean he wins at every racetrack, but the guy's just so successful. Why has he not won there?
Simple answer is because of COVID. When COVID hit, Mercedes was still really the premier team.
Yeah.
Since then, they didn't run at Singapore during that period. when they came back, I think last year was the first time back, and his teammate Perez won. So it just happened to be that car was better at that time. I don't know that anyone's going to have a lot for Max this weekend. I mean, Lewis has done really well there over the years, but their car just doesn't seem to be in a position to challenge these guys yet. But there's signs that everyone's catching up. Like last race, Sainz took a pole, which kind of came out of nowhere at Monza, where, Red Bull's been at least Verstappen's part of the Red Bull program has been killing. It was nice to see a different car do something, even though, they weren't really challenging him in the race.
No.
But, share a little bit of the glory and maybe give Helmut Marko a little bit of fire to say something else stupid.
Colin Livingston joins the Cantor Racing Report. Now, you talked about the heat on the drivers, and so obviously they'll lose a lot of weight. They have the ice bath going and different things like that. Fernando Alonso, now I read that he has now completed over 20,000 laps in his career in F1. Where does that rank? I don't know if you know.
That's by far and away number one.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, I tried to find the stats to see how much further ahead he is, because when it comes to the longevity stats, Lewis isn't far behind Alonso. Because, of course, Alonso retired, lost a couple of years. That let Lewis keep going. And Lewis is now slated for, he should be racing 24 and 25 is what he signed.
Yeah.
So depending on how long Alonso keeps going, Lewis has a chance of getting in. I don't know the actual number, though. But yeah, as far as, longevity goes, Alonso is the king. Like, nobody even close.
What makes him so good? Because the one thing I watch, and you watch the broadcast, I've learned they always talk about, like, he's incredible. Like, when you're behind him, it's really hard to pass him. Even if you have a better car, they're just like, so what makes him so good? Like, what is it about Alonso, just as a pure driver, that it's like, man, you got to do everything to try to pass this guy? Why is it harder to pass him than other drivers?
In a lot of cases, keep in mind, everyone at the top level is an excellent driver. I don't care if you're talking about the guys in the worst cars, they're still amazing drivers. And that always gets overlooked because we talk about these guys like they're disposable. But in a lot of cases, what happens is the car ends up driving the driver, meaning that if it's out of control, if it's, if there's a handling issue, the driver is really just hanging on, especially towards the back, where Alonso, even when his car isn't great, he knows how to position it so that it makes it a lot more difficult to get a run, or it makes it a lot more difficult when you get to the corner, that he's not really hugging the inside. He kind of hugs the outside, not enough to leave the door open. He's just a master of position, but so is Max and so is Lewis. And these guys, if we could get these guys in like cars, man, it would be such a great championship.
And I didn't ask you this week because we ran out of time, but Perez is obviously nearing the end with Red Bull, and a lot of
he's
people
still got one more year under contract, so he is with those guys through 2024.
For next year,
100%. The only thing that can happen, and sorry to cut you off, man, but the only thing that can happen is they could do like what Renault did.
Mutual agreement?
They'll maybe pull him out of the car. They'll still pay him his salary, like McLaren did with Danny Ricciardo a couple years ago. And then they'll move somebody else in there where they're going to be paying two drivers. That's about the only thing. If they decide to cut him, they're paying him out whatever he's entitled.
What if they had him? Has there ever been mutual agreements where he just says, okay, you know what? They obviously don't want me. I don't really want to be here. And there'll be other cars that I know I could get in. Could that happen?
Theoretically, yes. The way these deals work, like with Ricciardo, he was under contract for a couple of years. They paid him his full, I'm going to make up the number based on what they said, but he was basically getting paid $15 million a year, and he had 2 years left on his contract. When he signed to be the reserve driver with Red Bull AlphaTauri, and then when he signed his contract, maybe now he's getting paid $5 million a year.
Right.
That means that McLaren is still paying 10. So whatever he's making as a driver comes out of that. And that's what'll happen with Perez. But I mean, they're treating Perez so badly. Like, they're just dumping on him every chance they get. And while Perez is not driving at the same level as Verstappen, his team is not really backing him up either. So, hopefully he gets the team that he needs, and hopefully they start making a little bit better decisions so that he can actually show what he's got as a driver.
Awesome stuff. Well, we'll enjoy the wedding. We'll get
Thanks
an
a
update
lot.
on the speeches for that. And then we'll talk about Bahrain. We might have an official champ in Indy, and we'll see, can Max go 11 in a row?
Looking forward to it.
Like right now, it would be, I wonder what the odds are at playalberta.ca for anybody else to win this race. Like it's
they're not high. The only
Yeah.
one that's even got a chance is Perez. The only thing that
unless
really,
there's a crash.
or
And I hate to say it, and I
or a
know-
mechanical issue.
Yeah.
You know, engines fail, transmissions fail, gearboxes fail. You know, Max had a race one in Baku a bunch of years ago, blew a tire out on the front straightaway and crashed. Like,
Yeah.
and it was a bad
remember
crash.
that,
So,
yeah.
you know, racing is still unpredictable no matter how predictable it gets.
Yeah, that's true. Colin, have a good, safe trip.
Thanks, man.
It's Colin Livingston in the Racing Report, brought to you by Can Torque. I'm Jason Gregor, alongside Connor Halley. Terry Ryan will join us, the stunt man. This guy does everything. He was actually doing some stunts. I got to find out what it was coming up after the Conman Sports Center update, brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling, where the rates never change. No overtime charges. Guess what? If your furnace cops out tonight, tomorrow night, just call Legacy. No overtime charges. LegacyHeating.ca.
It's time for a Sports 1440 update. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
A premier hockey solution with a clear path for long-term development is proud to be entering its 7th season of independent borderless hockey, featuring provincial and cross-province competition with showcase style, regular season gameplay, and a strong commitment to individual skill development. It's an attractive option for those seeking family life balance. The Hockey Super League offers opportunities for both male and female athletes, born between 2011 and 2016. Visit hockeysuperleague.com for more information.
Hey, sports fans, we've got a clear choice for you. At Crystal Glass, we provide customers with the perfect glass for any job. From home to auto and even commercial, installation or repairs, we're your team. Call 310 Glass or visit crystalglass.ca. Crystal Glass.
Ain't it beautiful? The inventory is unprecedented. Volvo Cars Edmonton is proud to boast an amazing selection of in-stock Volvo XC40s, 60s, and 90s. Visit Volvo Cars Edmonton today and experience the exemplary service you've come to expect and the affordable luxury only found with Volvo Cars Edmonton, Canada's only 12-time Volvo Excellence Award winners. Experience the difference.
Volvo of Edmonton. PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated gambling website, features a variety of responsible gambling tools such as a time clock, deposit limits, and more. Remember, if you gamble, use your game sense. Visit GameSenseAB.ca to find out more.
Everyone loves a comeback. Hi, I'm Colin from Cantork. The flame of Edmonton sports fever burns bright. Cantork proudly continues our partnership with Jason Gregor, excited to re-enter the arena of sports radio on Sports 1440.
First Round is Edmonton's NFL headquarters. Get in the game and watch NFL football this season at First Round. And you'll have a chance to win a trip to your favorite NFL city to watch a game in person next season. And the hits keep on coming with food and drink specials, big screen TVs, and more. Catch the Pro Bowl brunch every Sunday, Monday Night Football, and head in Thursdays for your chance to win an NFL replica helmet. NFL at First Round. Burgers, beer, sports. Downtown West Edmonton Mall and at 1strnd.ca.
At The Brick, we're not just proud of this city and its rich sports history. We're proud partners of it. The Brick started right here in Edmonton over 50 years ago. And when we're not cheering on the Oilers and Oil Kings live at the game, or the Edmonton Elks under the bright stadium lights, we're in our stores, providing everything you need to cheer them on in your home. The Brick, supporting Edmonton sports teams and fans since 1971, saving you more.
Hi, Dennis from Weiss Johnson. Are you one of those people out there looking for something different to heat and cool your home? Weiss Johnson is Edmonton's cold climate heat pump specialist and would love to explain to you how Trane heat pumps are a reliable, cost-effective alternative for your home's heating and cooling needs. Order your Trane heat pump now and take advantage of the generous government rebates that are available. Trane, it's hard to stop a Trane. Call the most experienced HVAC company around with over 45 years in business. Visit wjcools.com today.
You don't have to sacrifice your canola yield potential to help manage clubroot, especially now that every Invigor canola hybrid with clubroot resistance includes our patented pod shatter reduction technology. Whether your fields need the protection of first or second generation clubroot resistance, you can count on our hybrids to further protect your hard-earned yield potential, so you can expect big yields, even in your tough fields. Talk to your retailer early to book your Invigor seed.
This is Sports 1440, a Stingray radio station broadcasting on Treaty 6 territory.
Download the free iHeartRadio app and listen to CKJR wherever you go.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Thursday afternoon on the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. Get in the game. Oh, we made a little wager. Yesterday I screwed it up, so today we're doing two. So we'll see. We just did one straight up, big one, and then the three parlay. We'll see what can happen. Got to go for it. Why not? Tampa Bay had really good odds today. Really good. Them and Baltimore are almost tied in the standings. It's one win separating. It was almost 2-1 for Tampa Bay. So, hey, sometimes you got to go for it. See what happens. We are live in the eWell studio. That's EWEL.ca. They will give you more than premium quality electrical products. Are you ready to elevate your projects? Because contact eWell and discuss how they can partner with your success. EWEL.ca. And we welcome to the program. He is our weekly Thursday and Monday co-host, former NHLer. He is an author. He is also an actor, getting set to star in season 2 of Shoresy. And he's also a stuntman. Jeez. It's like this guy should be like a beer representative. Most interesting man in the world. Terry Ryan joins us. TR, how you doing?
I could be better. My phone, I'm practicing for a stunt that you mentioned, stuntman, tomorrow. And my phone, I noticed, was going dead today. And it wasn't charging. I was hoping it was the charger, but it wasn't. I borrowed a few friends. Then on the way home, I was going to get one. I got pulled over for doing 56 and a 50. The guy just prolonged. He was nice enough not to give me a ticket, but prolonged the conversation. So as I sit here, I'll have a phone again tomorrow morning. You know, the anxiety that goes with that. Other than that, I mean, sometimes I don't want my phone, but in this case, it couldn't struck at a worse time. I was supposed to go on Spittin' Chicklets an hour ago. I got that stunt to do tomorrow. I got a buddy coming in at 1 o'clock in the morning. I got to pick up at the airport. Anyway, first world problems, right?
Yeah. Well, hey, you know what? That's why we have you streaming live on StreamYard. So it doesn't matter. Without a phone, you can still connect with us, which is great on Oilers Nation. YouTube is where you can watch it. So how long have you been a stuntman? Tell us. So you practice the stunt today and then you have to go do it tomorrow? I didn't even know you practiced that much. I guess it makes sense. You'd have to practice to be a stuntman.
Yeah, you got to do a stunt rehearsal. I'm getting blown out of a building, so this requires a crane. I'm on a harness, and I have to jump and time it. Well, you practice it because with an explosion, it's going to be a real explosion. None of this is fake. You won't see the harnesses, obviously, but we have to do it for that one. Whenever there's an explosion, you really got one take. Usually you do anyway, but this time, if I screw it up or if we screw it up, then it's a whole lot of building again and resetting, which will take at least a full day. So that's why. I mean, I got into this gig. Remember I told you I was in a scene in Frontier, the very, very, very first scene for those that want context and reference. Check it out. Technically, that's a stunt. Momoa slits my throat. I fall. Right. Union is real soft on the light stunts, or I guess gives you a break on those. It really shouldn't have been. I'm kind of a background actor with a few words, but anyway, that's kind of how I got in the Union. And Momoa taught me to do most of the stunts I do are fighting. Right. It's all camera work and it's timing more than anything. But in these take a lot of rehearsals. I probably did that jump 15 times today, and I'll go out tomorrow and maybe do it a few times before we actually go to camera at 2:00 p.m. tomorrow.
What was the most difficult stunt you've done so far?
Frontier season 3, you'll notice there's a few times I come in. Momoa wanted to have a hockey fight. In the show, it's late 1700s, okay, and I'm a British redcoat, and he's kind of speaking for the Indigenous and others that are being taken advantage of by the redcoats and company. Yeah. So there's a lot of friction. But Momoa, while he was teaching me, when he took me to Europe, I trained with the guys from Lord of the Rings. Spider-Man stunt double was in a lot of my fight scenes, so I learned from the best. And I guess the hardest would have been, you're asking difficult. It's having a fight scene with Jason Momoa, who really knows what he's doing, doesn't like to waste anybody's time. And, I think we had 300 people in the scene or so, and there was a lot going on. There was also an explosion. We had to fight and time it right. I guess that was, when it comes to nerves, that. This one tomorrow would be right up there, though. Like I said, there's a crane operator coming in. I'm being thrust, picture jumping out of a building 1 second before it explodes. That's exactly what's happening.
Oh, now, when you and Momoa are doing this fight scenes, do you guys ever accidentally hit each other?
Yeah, well, he liked that. So I don't know when it is. I know that
he's a big dude, man.
He's a big guy. Well, we ended up hanging out, and I, if you can believe it, his personal assistant during that time went back, took 6 months off. So I also helped him. I was his personal assistant for a while. That was a while. That's a book in itself. But yeah, if you'll notice in season 3, he loved hockey. So there's a point, I think it's episode 3 or 4. I come back. If you look closely, I mean, it's not the same guy every time. My character gets killed right off the bat. I'm coming back as either a stunt double or one of the British soldiers that happens to get mixed up with Momoa. I got different makeup on. I'm wearing a beard, sometimes not. You know what I mean? They make you look different. But there's one where he kind of hockey jerseys the guy. He pulls the red coat right over my head and gives it to me like it's a hockey fight. And that was kind of tongue-in-cheek. He wanted to do that because I was teaching him to play hockey, and we'd talk about it. But
oh, awesome.
It's all, it was all a wild experience, but it all started with Momoa. Like I said, he's a hockey fan and did me a favor.
Now, you think about when you go to hockey fights, right? And, jersey and guys, obviously guys would tie down and stuff. And when a guy does jersey you, though, do you just cover up and because to me, it's got to be a helpless feeling at that point. I've never been jerseyed in a fight ever, but I would assume that it's kind of nerve wracking because A, you can't see anything, and B, you don't know where the punches are coming. You're kind of guessing.
Totally. I liked it coming off. I can see why. I think they call it the Rob Ray rule because he would do it a lot.
He used to just get naked.
Yeah. But I can see why he did that. I mean, fully off, obviously, because, and he'd wear this nothing underneath. I think you couldn't even grab onto him. He had skin. No. But for me, the worst is in the middle. Either tie it down real solid, or if it comes off, you got to let her go. If you get stuck in the middle, then you can get beat pretty good. I'll tell you, a helpless feeling. It happened twice. Eric Cairns and Darren Langdon, but fighting and they held my arms with one hand. This is why I should have one of those head mics. With one hand right here at my elbows, kind of looking at me, and grabbed both elbows at the same time. And I'm and the other hand just teeing off on me. Those guys were that strong.
Oh yeah, Langan was tough, dude. Now, did you ever meet? You must have met Dennis Bonvie in your travels.
Bonvie, rarely I know I never, oddly enough, I never fought him. Being in that he was right wing, I'm left, pretty much. He's considered tougher than I am, but I fought as much as he did. We were often in the same division. It just never happened.
But you know him off the ice at all?
Yeah, I know him enough to say hi. I mean, he lives in Atlantic Canada. I've been at a couple of golf tournaments with him.
Okay.
I'm not best buddies or anything, but sure, if I saw him here now, I'd go over and say, "Hey, Dennis, what's up? Want to have a beer?"
Now, we are going to talk to Tony Marinaro later on about the team, of course, that drafted you, the Montreal Canadiens. When you're watching the games, Ter, are you a fan? Like when you grew up, were you a fan of the Canadiens? Were you a Leafs fan? Like who are you a fan of growing up? And are you a fan of a team or individuals now?
I grew up a huge Habs fan. Yeah, my dad was a Yankees and a Habs fan, like through and through. He's a 5 history degrees, and he takes that right into his sports. I knew every stat of every main player. Jean Beliveau was my hero, not Guy Lafleur or who had been the captain when I'm 8 or 9 years old, Bob Gainey.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew Bob Gainey, but like he went back to Beliveau, Doug Harvey, those guys.
Dick Duff.
Oh yeah, Dick Duff. I have his hockey card. If you can
that's my
believe
dad's favorite player. I just liked his name as a kid. I always thought it was awesome.
Yeah, it's great too. The names back then, there were so many. My favorite is his era is Jimmy Pie Face McKenzie. But a lot of people would have that Bob Tub Neely. Like there was a lot of those nicknames.
Yeah.
But I grew up a huge Habs fan, and I got to go there on a hockey tournament, and a bunch of us saved and went a few days early. Quebec Pee Wee tournament. We went up to see the Canadiens play a few days early. Like I was a huge fan. So when I am now, to be honest, and when I went there, I know if you look at Hockey DB, it's unfortunate, but everything was coming along for my own reasons. I guess mostly I didn't really like Michel Therrien, and the people who drafted me got fired. And Red Jean Houle was very honest. He said, "Well," I said, "Why don't you play me more, man?" He's like, "Well, I wouldn't have drafted you where you did. Serge Savard did that, and nothing against you. I don't think you're a good enough skater. And you know what? To each their own." I just said, "Okay, I'm taking the highway out of town, though, right? Can you please trade me?" My roommate Darcy Tucker got traded. I looked at Aaron Asham eventually, Gordie Dwyer, Craig Conroy, Jim Campbell. So I just kind of wanted out, and when I did, I got hurt. But so if you things were coming along, and I enjoyed my time there.
Okay.
Point being, it was unfortunate. I should have gone back to camp. I didn't. But I don't have any hard feelings. For a few years, I got to be honest, Jason, it was bittersweet. I wouldn't pay attention, and I'd trip over my bottom lip, but I'm like, what am I going to do? I did skate out there and wear the jersey of one of the most heralded sports franchises around, and when it all vanished was when I had my daughter. And a few years ago, I never brought it up. People are coming in and out and knocking on the door in Mount Pearl. That happens often. "Hey, Terry, can we see your hockey cards?" or whatever it might be. And she took it, and then a few years ago when they made the final, her and her 2 friends knocked on the door, opened, and her book bag dropped. And she said, "Is that the team you played for?" Right? I said, "Yeah, that's the Montreal Canadiens," right? Then I took her to her first game last year.
Okay.
So for me to be bitter at the team that drafted, and they, say what you want, they drafted me in the first round, and no one can take that away. And now I just focus on the positives.
Well, you can understand. I know, hey, Ray Jean Houle, it's easy to say after the fact, "Hey, you know what? I wouldn't have drafted you there." But you had scored 50 goals and 110 points, man. It wasn't like you were drafting a slug. Like a 50-goal season, right? For a guy who's, your 17-year-old year, you turned 18. That's pretty good numbers, man. There's not a lot of 50-goal scorers in their draft year. I can tell you that. So it's, I wouldn't downplay it too much. It didn't work out, and that's unfortunate. But I think it's easy for someone else to say, "Well, I wouldn't have drafted you there." Well, great. Who would, Ray Jean, tell me who you would have drafted, because let's go through Ray Jean Houle's draft history. It wasn't like he was knocking home runs out left and right, for goodness sakes, right? I guess maybe he's going to say, sure, Jerome McGinley. Great. Okay. Right. But there's, maybe they would have drafted Timu Riihijärvi, right? You never know.
And at that point, this was only a few, and I was, rookie of the year my first year in the minors. I had 21 goals for them and 34 fights.
Yeah. Well,
that's why I said, if that didn't work and we didn't make the playoffs, but again, I just wasn't part of their plan. So after my first year, when Reggie came in, I went in for my, the exit meetings at the end of the year. We were called up as Black Aces. And Fredericton played a lot of games in Montreal, like 10 a year. So we'd often be around. So I went in for the end of the year meeting. And I remember like 5 minutes in, and he said, what is your goal next year? I said, well, to make the Montreal Canadiens, obviously. And I think I put myself in a good position to do it. And he's like, well, maybe some more time in the minors. And I'm thinking, what's he talking about? And then he called me Russ. And I realized he thought I was Russ Gouger. He thought a guy that we had signed that played a few games at Fredericton. I was like, oh, wow. So I'm like,
no, I'm Terry.
I did say that. No, but he was always jovial and nice to me. And, so it wasn't this screw you kind of thing. It never was. Just finally, when I saw all these guys doing well and Michel Therrien, I just didn't get along with them. I wanted out. I got hurt. Well, I mean, who knows? If I didn't get hurt, I would have gone to Dallas, played some games, I think, and then, somewhere. And I'd look back at, with a wink and a nod. But unfortunately, things happen. I got buddies that are 6 feet under, man, and I'm here doing all right. So I don't want to complain about playing for one of the best teams in history.
I do think it's funny that Ray, well, I wouldn't have drafted you. I'd be like, well, yeah, because you don't even know who I am. How could you?
I know. What a thing to hear, right? I'm going, whoa, well, can you trade me then? But he did say, though, he offered me, right before camp started. The reason I didn't go, he told me I was going to be in Quebec. That was their minor league team for a couple of years, the Quebec Aces or Raphaels or something. So, and he told me,
are you talking, is this 99, 2000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I ended up going to the St. John's Maple Leafs. I got loaned out because he told me, he said, you'll be our captain down there and you'll be one of our first call-up. He told me I was going to be the first call-up. I'm like, how can you say that for, defenseman like and then, I don't really want to go and start again in Quebec and be captain. Like, to me, that was the kiss of death. Bring the young guys along in the minors. But he was very honest and nice to me. So not everybody can say that either.
Well, that's crazy, though, that in 1999, they were like, hey, guess what? You've played a grand total of 71 AHL games at that. Well, I know, I guess 100. You'd spend 2 years there. Now you're going to be a captain at 22. Well, that's 23. That's...
And I had nowhere else to go. My second year, I think, I don't know, I had 50-something games. I had another 16 goals, another 200 minutes. Like, I'm thinking at this point, it's hard to play in the minors. Like, it's not easy. And to go and take those bruises, for peanuts compared to what you're getting up top. And I understood the two-way contracts and everything. I just wanted out. To see Gordie Dwyer, nothing against Gordie. He's one of my good friends. I was like 5 notches ahead in the depth chart. We sent him down to the coast. He got traded in the Tucker trade and went immediately to Tampa Bay for 150 games. I said, okay, come on here,
Yeah,
Anyway.
because, well, you know what? There is something, just because one person doesn't like you doesn't mean there's always going to be someone else say, hey, you know what? Yeah, he's a number 8th overall pick. We'll give him a shot. And yeah, it's unfortunate. So I like your honesty about Terry, though. That's good. And it is great, though, that your daughter finally is like, hey, wait a sec, Dad. Like, you must have got a few good dad points, though, when she walked into the house and
yeah,
the Canadians. Like, that must have been a pretty good moment.
Well, yeah, because she sees people. I don't think of it in this. My perception is completely different, or it was. She sees people in Canadians jerseys. There's lots of rec teams. I mean, even the Fredericton team we had Canadians jerseys. But, her dad's friends are wearing hats and everything, So to her, the Montreal Canadiens was just this. It was a symbol that everybody wears. Yes. Everybody once in a while wears one of those. She didn't realize I actually played for the team till just like it was when it was the playoff run. What's that, 2020?
21,
right?
Yeah. 2021.
It was fantastic. And I went into her school and, all of a sudden then they're like, people are coming over who I'd seen every day for years. And just,
you didn't tell everybody about it. That's pretty humble. I like it. Terry Ryan joins us every Thursday here on the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440 and live on Oilers Nation YouTube. We'll come back. Bronte will join us next.
McCafe now has cold brew beverages, and they're smooth. Made with 100% Arabica beans, steeped cold and slow for an irresistibly smooth taste. McCafe cold brew beverages, for a limited time only at participating McDonald's.
Actions speak louder than words. Japa Machinery Group puts your construction plan into action with XCMG construction machinery you need. Available for rental or sale. Learn more at japamachinery.com.
Mr. Rooter hits the links.
So I tell the guy it's leaking because you have a hole-in-one.
Hey, Mr. Rooter, you have a better chance of hitting the green with a crescent wrench, you bum.
Oh, boy. It's my rival, Mr. Plunger.
You swing a club like you plumb. Lousy.
Lousy, eh? Hey, Mr. Plunger, there's a club down here.
You can trust all
Are you ready to light up your game like Edmonton lights up the ice? Electrical Wholesalers Edmonton Limited offers lightning fast service, just like your favorite forward. They deliver your electrical supplies in record time. They only stock the best. And don't forget about their all-star support. When it comes to customer service, they're the playmakers.
So don't sit in the dark. Make the power play and visit UL today. Online at ewel.ca, where excellence in electrical meets the heart of hockey.
It's time to gear up for fall at Wolf GMC Buick. But there's a catch. We'll get to that. You're not going to pay high rates like 6.9%. You'll pay 0% financing on all in-stock GMC Sierra half-ton Pro editions. And that's for 60 months. You'll also save $750 if you're a Costco member. 0% financing for 60 months on all in-stock GMC Sierra half-ton Pro editions. The catch? You'll need to get here ASAP because inventory is cruising off the lot pretty quickly. Wolf GMC Buick. We're making it easy.
Trevor is home. Yeah. So Trevor threw a big party and served a salad. Nobody came. Mike is also lonely.
Yeah, sucks, man.
So Mike threw a big party and served Will Hawk beef jerky.
Everybody came!
Will Hawk beef jerky. Because you don't know where you mix that.
Will Hawk is the home of Alberta's best beef.
Beef, and Western.
Trying to say, not a wedding bucket bigger than a swimming pool. Truth to Heritage Hall to enjoy some egg Steve. And my shorty, here's the homies from Legacy. Hey, listen, yo, where we gonna get the dough to pay Legacy from the radio? She says Legacy Heating's got a deal that's the bomb with no feature store payments flipping all year long. No money, no problems. That's that I choose. Chillaxing with thousands of BTU. Doing whatever the heck that was. That's when you build a legacy. Legacy Heating and Cooling. Hey world, get ready to move. At Eating Noodles, we serve up world-class, worldwide flavors that are sweet, saucy, and fiery noodles. We believe in the power of new. We've got everything from saucy mac and cheese to sizzling pad thai to so many other unbelievable dishes, sure to make you a noodle convert for life. You've got to taste them to believe it. Don't be a skeptic. The proof is in the noodles. Check us out at oodlenoodle.ca. Oodle Noodles, we believe in noodles.
With over 380 conveniently located card lock locations, Co-op offers the largest card lock network in Western Canada, accessible right from the road. Count on us to keep you 24/7, right from Vancouver Island, British Columbia, through to Thunder Bay, Ontario, and all points in between.
Mr. Cat Driver,
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
I might need some help. Mr. Cab Driver, he thinks about himself.
We continue on Thursday afternoon. Jason Gregor, Terry Ryan with you. Connor Halley, of course, along, as well as Declan Kruger for a busy Thursday edition of the Jason Gregor Show, presented by Alberta.ca, an online gambling site where all registered rates are lovely province of Alberta. Play Alberta.ca. And they keep adding lots of new options for you, the little boost ones, like $10 if you just want to play around with some fun ones. Check it out, playalberta.ca. Not only are we live on the radio at Sports 1440, streaming online, we have all the podcasts, we're live on Orders Nation YouTube, also now live on Facebook as well, and we've had a lot of comments coming in there, so we appreciate it. We try to make it so you can get the show anywhere. You want to listen to it? Awesome. You want to stream it? Great. You want to watch it? Even better. And Terry would like to do all of that once he gets his phone back. So that will be fantastic. ATR, like you got the shakes now, like you've had, or is this good for you? Like, can you handle not having your phone?
I love not having my phone at the right time. I just got there's a lot going on in the next day. And,
well, I just emailed you. I sent you an email. So can you check your email? Do you have internet service?
I do on my phone here. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so check an email. We sent you an email if you want to look at it. It might be important. So check that out. Let's get to now the Oil Report, brought to you by Volvo of Edmonton, where you can finance a new or a demo or a certified pre-owned Volvo for as low as 1.49%. Only at Canada's best Volvo dealership, VolvoEdmonton.com. And they also have their XC90 fully electric vehicle in stock. And whoo-hoo, baby, it looks slick. I like it. A gentleman who likes cars, some more than others, Ruben Bronte, a.k.a. Robin Brownlee. We like to call him Ruben, or Bronte for short, joins us now. Rubes, how you doing?
Hey, Jason, I'm really good. Nice to be here today. Hey, and by the way, I just realized for the first time, for all the time he's been around, that Terry was the same draft as Kelly and Doan.
Yes.
I didn't realize that. Interesting top 20 in that draft. Anyway, Terry, it's nice to be on with you. We haven't talked before, but I followed your career a little bit along the way with your journey through Tri-City and to Montreal. And I always wondered if you'd get along with Mario Tremblay. Did you ever get a chance to play for him? Because he told you what he thought and he didn't mince words.
I loved Mario. Yeah, he was in and out quick. The Patrick Waugh thing really affected me. I got drafted 2 months before that, right?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of turmoil, and I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, Jason, I just don't think I was part of the second plan there. But yeah, Mario was great. I mean, he let me wear number 14. He pretty much, just think about rookies coming. It was his number, by the way, right?
Yeah.
And rookies coming in, and he brought it up. He came over and said, just think about it. My buddy, I think Aaron Ashton was like 46. Tucker was like maybe 42. Michael Ryder was 73. They don't tend to give those numbers out if they don't have confidence and they don't like you, like number 14 in Montreal. And that was the first thing that he did. He was there. I can't remember. I got there. They just slapped me with the number, and he told me that. And I had a buddy in Tri-Cities pass away, Todd Klassen. He's from Edmonton. And that was when we were all going down for the boat races one year. And myself and Dean Tilchin started a fundraiser for him that I hope still goes on. But that was the other thing. And he knew that, and he was nice enough. He had the conversation. And I'm of the belief that he seemed to be a parallel mind with me in a lot of things. He seemed like a team guy. He knew a lot about Newfoundland. He went out of his way to be a friend. So thanks for asking, and I follow your stuff too. It's great to be on with you.
So, Rubes, look, it's an interesting season for the Edmonton Oilers. You had a lot of guys have career years. Obviously, McDavid had a ridiculous year, one of the greatest ever in NHL history. Draisaitl, career year. Nugent Hopkins, career year, 100 points. Zach Hyman, career year. Now, it would be hard for all four to have career years again. They could all have really good years. Like McDavid could score 140 points, and it would be like, this is unbelievable, but it's not a career year. What's your expectation for Hyman and Nugent Hopkins specifically?
Well, you know what? I don't think we can expect, I don't think anybody expects another 100-point season from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I mean, the thing that helped him last season, and hey, all the points count, but was, I want to say it was 53 on the power play and 51 at evens. He's always been a power play guy, even down in Red Deer. He can be your bumper. He can be your guy on the wall. He can make things go, and he did. I think he can still have a hell of a season and not be at 100. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, if he gets to 80 points, that represents the second best season to the one he just had. And believe me, there's nothing wrong with an 80-point hockey player. Hyman, I think he's taken enough jumps in the last 2 years that it would be a stretch to expect more. I wouldn't be stunned to see more, but I think I don't know that I would expect it. He gives you what he's got, and there's going to be nights for him when a lot of his goals are hustle and effort. They're not pure skill, and you can get there and you can do what you do, but you still don't know if the puck's going to go in the net for you. Almost everything he seemed to shoot last year found a way in for him when he wasn't getting goals called back.
Yeah, very true. Ekholm came in the 21 games that Ekholm played in Edmonton. Him and Vincent Desharnais played a lot together on the penalty kill. Darnell Nurse actually played the most minutes on the penalty kill. Their penalty kill was 82%. However, it was gross 93% because they scored 4 shorthanded goals. It was much better down the stretch in the final quarter of the season. Do you think that continues? And how much of an impact do you think Ekholm will make on a full year?
Well, you know what? It was, to me, it was night and day from the time he arrived. He made virtually everybody better who he played with, especially Evan Bouchard. The impact on Bouchard was just remarkable. And I don't know if it's just between the years, something unspoken like, hey, if I make a mistake, that big Swede's going to be in the right spot. Not every time I have a brain cramp or make a mistake, it's going to end up in our net. And that does a lot for a young player like Evan Bouchard. He just, he mitigated tough plays. He provided more offensive pop than I thought he might, which was a bit of a surprise. But he's just, he's just a big, strong, meat and potatoes guy who makes everybody a little bit better there because he knows where to be and when to be there. And I'll be interested to see how that plays out over a whole year. I don't think anything's going to change. Now that we've seen how he plays, let's just see it over a full season. I'm interested to see if he has any changes in defense partners that might need that kind of tutelage, because this is a smart guy. This is a guy who, like I said, knows where to be and when to be there, and that can help a couple youngsters on that back end, if you ask me.
Rubes, Evander Kane has shown flashes of brilliance, to say the least.
Yeah.
Do you think he comes back to form?
Ugh. You know what? I haven't talked to Evander in person, Terry. What I worry about after a season like that is Evander's no longer a young player. He's not an old player, but he's been around a while. And that wrist injury was bloody serious. And then he got banged up after that too. You don't heal any faster as you get older. You don't come back any quicker. You know what? I don't know. He's a very determined guy. We've seen him, during the off season playing in some pickup senior men's games and having fun. The skill is there. The edge is there, but he's got to stay healthy because the way he plays, he can't be a perimeter player. So whether it's your ribs or your sternum or this wrist, what's worse for a shooter in hockey than having a bad wrist? It's like a racehorse with a bad hoof, isn't it?
True enough, guys. Because a lot of Newfoundlanders go to the Quebec League, so as far as the junior leagues, I love to follow the West, Red Deer, Tri-City, my former teams. But a few years ago, Xavier Bourgault, okay? I'd forgotten he went to Edmonton. This guy was on fire, and I kind of forgot about him. And I'm looking, and he's in your guys' organization. 62 games played, 34 points. What is the word? I'm thinking they're so loaded up front with free agents coming in to try out that are much higher than him in any depth chart. But he did do all right, and he is a first-round pick. What's the word on Xavier?
Well, if you're asking me, I don't think the job opening that's available on the fourth line is a place where you want to put a kid like that. Well, it would be nice to have him in the National Hockey League, where, you're practicing with NHL players, you're playing with NHL players. If you can get that feeling that, hey, I belong here, that matters. But how often are you playing? How many minutes are you getting? And how many games are you sitting in the press box with a bag of popcorn in your hand? That's the question for this team that used to always have too many positions that they could fill with young guys, and now they don't have very many at all. It's a different situation.
Yeah, Bourgault's in tough. I think Raphael Lavoie out of the Quebec Major Junior League, he's probably the one closer, at least coming out of training camp, to see. He bet on himself. He took his qualifying offer and said, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, I make a little bit more, but I'm going to only make the $70K if I get to the minors." And he bet on himself. Maybe, I think he's also betting that if he doesn't make Edmonton, that maybe someone picks him up on waivers. We'll see. Brownlee, before we let you go, we got a few people wondering. What is on the wall behind you as they watch on YouTube? Is that like a poster? Is it knives? What is it?
That's that was a piece of art I got from my local cannabis place. No, I'm kidding. It's you know what? It's just a contemporary piece of art. It doesn't fit in my house. It doesn't go with any of the color scheme, which is all earth tones in a craftsman house. We used to have a black and white thing going, and I thought, well, I don't want to get rid of it, so I kept it. It's kind of like a mind blown poster. You know what I mean? Like,
all right,
does it grab your attention or does it distract you?
Oh, that doesn't bother me at all. It was just Mike was wondering, so I just like it's basically like a young Ruben Bronte when he's wearing his Ace Frehley high boots, and maybe there is a reefer, maybe there wasn't. I don't know, but that's that it kind of fits to that younger generation of Robin Brownlee, which is nice. Rubes, have a good one. We will chat with you next week.
Okay, thanks, fellas. See you later.
Nice.
Ruben Bronte joins us. He'll join us every Monday and Thursday. So you guys will get to know each other quite well, TR. So you actually we'll come back to the 1995 draft, which happened to be in Edmonton when Terry Ryan got drafted. We'll talk about some draft stories and more. We got a lot of text to get to. 833-401-1440. You can text us on our Jiffy Lube text line or get us in the inbox. Gregor at sports1440.ca. It is the Gregor Show with Terry Ryan, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated gambling website, features a variety of responsible gambling tools such as a time clock, deposit limits, and more. Remember, if you gamble, use your game sense. Visit GameSenseAB.ca to find out more.
Edmonton's premium live music and party venue is
On the Rocks.
Check out Bingo Tunes on Monday. Perform on the best stage in town with karaoke on Wednesdays. Learn how to salsa with Salsa Rocks on Thursdays. And every weekend, OTR goes live.
With your favorite bands on the OTR stage and DJ Kenny K.
For everything that's going on at On the Rocks, give us a follow.
Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.
At On the Rocks, EDM.
Eat well, party hard.
On the Rocks.
On the Rocks.
On the Rocks. Open every day till 2 a.m.
At The Brick, we're not just proud of this city and its rich sports history. We're proud partners of it. The Brick started right here in Edmonton over 50 years ago. And when we're not cheering on the Oilers and Oil Kings live at the game, or the Edmonton Elks under the bright stadium lights, we're in our stores, providing everything you need to cheer them on in your home. The Brick, supporting Edmonton sports teams and fans since 1971. Saving you.
Every project to life requires the right team. By joining the Japa Machinery Group service or sales teams, you can be part of setting a new industry standard. Celebrating a legacy of excellence with Japa. Learn more at japamachinery.com.
Ain't it beautiful? There's electricity in the air. Carrie Dahl here for Volvo of Edmonton, where the Volvo XC40 and C40 fully electric vehicle is now in stock, along with a great selection of Volvo T8 hybrid models. Experience the trusted Volvo quality and technology to power into tomorrow at Volvo Cars Edmonton, Canada's only 12-time Volvo Excellence Award winners. Experience the difference.
Volvo of Edmonton.
Feel the electric atmosphere and celebrate every Edmonton Oilers home game this season inside Rogers Place. Time is running out. Come be a part of what looks to be a season to remember. Less than 275 season seats remain for the 23-24 Edmonton Oilers season. Hurry to edmontonoilers.com/season seats to get yours before they're gone. Don't miss any historic moments from this incredible lineup. Get your season seats today at edmontonoilers.com/season seats.
McCafe now has cold brew beverages, and they're smooth. Made with 100% Arabica beans, steeped cold and slow for an irresistibly smooth taste. McCafe cold brew beverages, for a limited time only at participating McDonald's.
The James Insurance Group is here to protect families, and life can bring unexpected needs for coverage, like when Aunt Heidi and Aunt Teresa wore the same dress to the family reunion.
Well, we can't offer fashion advice, but the James Insurance Group can keep your home and auto, family heirlooms, and more covered. Working for Albertans across the province, the James Insurance Group will find you the best value and coverage you need. Find us at tjig.ca. That's tjig.ca.
Sipping gin and juice, just trying to stay cool. And I'm sweating buckets bigger than a swimming pool. Cruise to Heritage Mall to enjoy some AC. Then my shorty hears the homies from Legacy. I say, listen, yo, where we gonna get the dough to pay Legacy from the radio? She says, Legacy Heating's got a deal that's the bomb with no interest or payments flipping all year long. No money, no problems, that's the life that I choose. Chillaxing with thousands of BTU.
Doing whatever the heck that was. That's how you build a legacy. Legacy Heating and Cooling.
At jackpotcity.net, you can do amazing things with just one casino chip. Discover a world of incredible casino games with over 500 high-quality online slot games, including the world-renowned progressive jackpot slot Mega Moolah. Play for free at jackpotcity.net and get treated as a VIP 24/7. So visit jackpotcity.net today on your tablet, laptop, or mobile. Jackpot City, a whole world of casino games. 18 plus. Please play responsibly. This is not a gambling website.
Portions of this hour brought to you by Japa Machinery. Japa is digging deep on their 50-year history, supporting Alberta's construction industry with their special edition blackout excavators. Visit japamachinery.com for all the details.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
We are back, baby. Jason Gregor, Terry Ryan, Connor Halley with you Thursday afternoon. We are nearing the end of week number 2 here on Sports 1440, and just lots of things are improving. We figured it out. It's not a sweat box in here anymore. I know for those of you at home listening, it doesn't change, but I'll tell you, I'm in a better mood. So it should make for a better broadcast. It is. It's stunning. Stunning. Connor Halley, the scientist behind it. There's some thermostat, not even in our studio, but outside, that was cranked to 25. I knew it was a sweat box. 25. When the right mind, is that like a prank on the newbies? I'm wondering. Terry Evans, I'm looking at you. Maybe. Eh, Cons?
That is actually what we were discussing. But then even K-Rock employees were like, it's really hot in here. Okay. Uncomfortable.
Yeah,
So
well, there you go. So somebody,
figured it out.
K97. K97.
K97.
There you go. Terry Ryan, who's I'm guessing a big Marilyn Monroe fan as I look at his in his room. Now, you also have a bunch of sticks behind you and a number 14 jerseys on the wall. What are those number 14 jerseys from?
I got jerseys all around. I'm either 14 or 20, 14 more of the time. The Big Deal Selects Chicklets Cup over here under between the Lennon and Marilyn Monroe pictures, and right behind me is the Gander Flyers, a Newfoundland senior team that Aaron Asham flew over and played for us for a couple of years, 16 and 17, I believe.
Oh, Gander, yes. Gander's that's a long established franchise in senior men's hockey.
It really is. Goes back quite a way. They played for the Allen Cup a couple of times. My dad played for the Gander Flyers. It was with the first team I believe he played on upon retiring from pro. There was a bit of money being thrown around even back then.
Oh, now what type of player was your old man?
My dad was 44th overall. He was a scorer, small scorer, 5'9", speedster, very much not like me at all, but played every day. So it's a great story. There was 5 of them that all come from Grand Falls, and there was a mill out there. Abitibi Price ran it, and they brought a guy to town, Joe Byrne. Joe had played in the NHL, and he ran minor hockey. And 3 years later, 5 of the guys on my dad's team were all in the OHL, and 5 of them went pro, one way or another. Tony White ended up scoring 30 for Washington. My dad, honestly, I tell you, he came from a family very poor. No one had a degree. 12 brothers and sisters on his father's side, and his mom's, I'm not sure, I think 4. No one had a college degree. All good people, worked hard. A lot of fishermen on the one side, but he wanted to get a degree, so he went away, and he goes to Minnesota North Star, Fighting Saints, 44th in one league, 41st in the other. So he took the WHA money because they gave him a little bit more money and paid for everything in his school. So he played a year, led the league in shorthanded goals, 13 overall, 6 shorthanders. Got sent down the next year, didn't really like it. Got sent down again, said, what am I doing? I'll go back. Graduated and came home, started teaching. And I say to him, like, man, like you were there with, like, that's pretty high. And, you know, he was going to go back to Minnesota North Stars camp, the NHL, obviously, back then. Because he got drafted to the Fighting Saints and the North Stars. Okay, sorry, I'm rambling. Minnesota in both leagues. But that was it. He said, I had my degree. I wanted to come home and start teaching. You can see on his hockey DB, he went back, I think, 75, 76, 76, 77 to play with Kalamazoo. They gave him a great deal in the minors. And I believe he had 101 points or something. He was like 5th in scoring. 5 offers to go to camp, back again. You know, my dad is a different bird. And like he said, I used hockey to get my degree. It wasn't to play in the NHL, Terry.
There you go.
Right.
Well, you know, and to me, it's funny because some people think, like, if your dream's to be in the NHL, then that's but there's lots of players that love hockey who are like, you know what, that wasn't for me. And back then, it's not like today. Like, I think today the dream of the NHL is there, but it becomes bigger for some people because they see all the zeros and the dollar figures, and it impacts you somewhat differently than maybe, you know, it was in the 70s and the 80s where, yeah, you played because you loved it, but it wasn't like, oh my goodness, you know, I can retire after one contract. Right. So
totally.
It is a little bit different so are you Terry Ryan Jr.?
Yeah.
Officially?
Especially around here, there's one Terry Ryan. It's not me. Yeah.
So do they call you TR Jr.? Do they call you Junior? What do they call you?
Yeah, I got a lot of names, but if it was going to be Terry Ryan, there would be a junior follow it. I'm TR, he's senior. I guess that could be a little, you know, it's more like that. But even right back to Quesnel, when I went to Quesnel, BC, 14 and 15, you know, even in Tri-City, my name would be announced as Terry Ryan Jr., even though senior was nowhere to be found. It was just, we know about this guy, right? So at best, you're junior.
Well, that's all right. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. And you mentioned, so your dad went and he got a history degree? He was a prof?
Dad's got a few degrees. He got a French degree, history degree, education. He just became a teacher and taught high school, mostly French, for almost 30 years. Retired about 5 years ago.
Gee, we might have to get old TR Senior on the show. I like it.
He can talk. He can talk. He likes stories. I tell you that.
Oh, now, so who do you think talks more, junior or senior?
If you can believe it, senior. Yeah, if you can believe it. I know. I can see him when we get together with others. Where I can. So I use him as not a barometer, but a very obvious pointer to what I tend to be like in rambles. So he's a great teacher without trying to do it. I look and go, okay, I've got to cut back there, and there, because genetically, whatever that is, got passed down.
Nice. Now I want to go back to your draft year because it was 1995 and it was in Edmonton. So I'm assuming you were here in Edmonton for the draft.
Yeah.
Right. Do you have like any funny draft stories? What about like draft interviews leading up to the draft?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, about 14 or 15 guys from my team in Tri-Cities were from Edmonton. And I had Mike Barnett as an agent. He was Wayne Gretzky's agent. And so did Damon Lankow and Brian Boucher. 3 of us were from Tri-City. The 3 of us went in the first round. Back then, I think it tied a record or something. I mean, it was pretty wild. And at the beginning of the year, neither of us really knew that was a possibility.
Yeah.
So that was wild. I'll tell you this. I met Struds for the first time, and he had these high red pants on. Like, he's not kidding. I know he jokes about it now. But even back then, it was like he was well aware of his unique style. It was at Esmeralda's. Is that place still there? No.
Oh, yeah. No, Esmeralda's, the building is still there, but the bar is not.
Ezzy's, yeah. It was somewhere every year. It was Senior Frogs, Cowboys, Ezzy's, back to Cowboys, Iron Horse. I used to stay out there a lot in the summers, so I was very down with Edmonton. Yeah, there was a lot of great stories.
Must have stopped the Barry Tees once in your life.
Barry Tees. Yeah, I love that spot. Used to go there with the Hurley brothers, Mike and Mark.
Oh,
and Ryan Marsh was coming. And Ryan Marsh was one of my best buddies of all time. I mean, wild when I saw he's coming on your show.
Oh, yeah, no, Marshy, head coach now of the Saints. Their season begins tomorrow night. So
he was on that team. I stayed with his parents. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, my man. When I went out to Quesnel, BC as a 14-year-old, right? Marshy was signed with Northern Michigan. My dad, Tri-City, put me there and dropped Sheldon there. and they put like a couple other prospects, but it was me and Sheldon, and Ryan played so well. They called my dad and was like, "Can you put eyes on this guy?" And he called him back and said, "If you don't sign him immediately, then you're doing yourself a disservice." Ryan, who was dead set on going to Northern Michigan, my dad went over. I remember they had a talk, and my dad came out. He said he's going to Tri-Cities. They got him.
Now, what about lead up interviews at the 95 draft? How many did you have? And did it happen like right up until the day before? And did you have an inkling that Montreal was going to take you?
Well, for the guys rated really high, I don't know what really high is, top 3 rounds, maybe. I don't know. I can't remember. But like there were certain teams that would fly you down. Like I flew to Washington. A bunch of us went down, and there was a lot of like, it was IQ stuff. Like if a train is leaving point A at this time and point B at this time, when are they going to intersect? And, and then a lot of philosophy, what's the word? Not ethical questions,
Okay.
like you save a family, your family or this bus. And then it was like physical testing. And then we all went out for a meal. I've got a great story there, but anyway, and then I flew to Toronto to do my interviews with Dallas and I think Philly. I'd pretty much talked to every team when I was right before I was about to go out one of those nights. It was the night before the draft. And Lanx's parents, like I said, were there. Damon's brother, Scott, was already drafted to Winnipeg 2 years before it. So it was this big. But I remember like the Belak brothers being there. I think Wade was drafted a year before that. It was just like this big celebration of Western Leaguers. So we did have a good time. And there's a story that you asked me. There's a Milbury story and then a Phil Esposito story. All that happened. And I remember after all the interviews, I think there was 26 teams in the league, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe it was only 2 teams, Detroit and Montreal, that hadn't interviewed me. And when I would get up in the morning, go down with my family, my Pee Wee coach, Derm Connolly's there with me, a couple of my buddies, Jeremy Charles, who's now a world-renowned chef. Just my family and buddies from Mount Pearl. So we went down and we had a bite to eat. And I remember getting on the getting in the elevator when we got there and taking it down underneath to go out because I was sitting fairly low. And when I got in, there was all these scouts. And Doug Robinson was Montreal's head scout. And he puts his arm around me and he says, "You like to play pretty tough, eh?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "A lot of goals. Yeah. A lot of fights, you're what we need." I said, "Okay." And I knew who that was. He was with Pierre Mondu. Pierre Mondu wasn't long retired, and I knew who Pierre Mondu was. So I'm like, I'm looking at my dad going, "It's Montreal." And then he goes, "Hey, kid, great Memorial Cup." And I look at my dad and he goes, "He thinks you're Shane Doan." I went, "Thanks a lot. I thought I played real well." And then I got up. He thought I was Doan. Doan ended up going 7th and I went 8th.
Yeah. Well, hey, trust me, Oilers fans remember that was because they were chanting Shane Doan's name, and then the Oilers
so bad
took Steve Kelly. Yeah. So after Doan went 7th, after having that, he thought it was Doan. So you probably were like, "Well, this guy doesn't even know who I am," although maybe he did know who you were.
Now they knew my stats, but I thought I was going to Boston. Boston, I had a great, and then I knew Dallas. They were all over me. I had a great interview. I was real confident. I was hoping I'd go. I think they picked 11th, right? Because they picked Iggy.
Yeah, they took Ginla.
And again, it wasn't that odd at the time. Now I know, looking back, and whatever circumstances happened, but at the time I had 110 points. I think Iggy had 72. He was like Bambi on skates. I played Team Canada with him under 18. He was really good. I can, at the time, I can see how people kind of didn't realize the potential that he had. We did as players, honestly. It didn't really surprise me that he ended up doing what he did, but I thought I was going 11 to Dallas, okay? And I thought there's a chance Boston, and I remember them saying, "Who's your favorite player?" And I'm like, okay, it's Boston. Cam Neely. He was one of them, so I might as well say Cam Neely. And, and at the time, I know it's preposterous now, but at the time I played like that. Yeah. So, and I remember them saying, with a name like Ryan here in Boston, and I remember them saying, "If we pick you, we're going to play you, but it might be just half the year, but you're not going back to junior." And it's funny because they ended up taking Kyle McLaren. And of all of us, Kyle was not ready. He was about 6'4", but he was like 175. Like, he really needed to grow. But they were true to their word. They played him like 40 games. And then the next year he was ready. I mean, and he became a great player. I'm not downplaying that. I'm just saying that's what happened. And the guys who drafted me didn't even know what I look like. But that being said, they were great, man. They were great.
Terry Ryan joins us. He will be, of course, with us every Monday and Thursday. Let's take a quick Sports 1440 update brought to you by BIE Engineering, specializing in all your residential, commercial, and industrial structural engineering needs. Go to BIEENG.com. Here's a Sports 1440 update live on Sports 1440 and watching on Oilers Nation YouTube. Connor.
It's time for a Sports 1440 update. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
It's after 4 o'clock. Speaking of PlayAlberta.ca, yesterday we had some technical difficulties, so we didn't get our bet in time. So today we made one separate, though. We just went straight Addison over 42.5 receiving yards. So I like that with the injuries and Slay likely on Jefferson tonight. And then the other one, the parlay that we always like to bet, we got some feedback from you. So we went Eagles to win, Tampa Bay to win, and the Giants to win. So San Francisco, that is, not the New York Giants. It would be a cold day in HE double hockey sticks for betting on the Giants. Tell you that right now. I'm Jason Gregor, live on Sports 1440. Also, we're live everywhere right now. It's amazing. We're on the Orders Nation YouTube page. Hit the subscribe button. We're live on Facebook now. It's amazing. Also, you can stream us anywhere. Get us on the iHeartRadio app, Stingray app. It's fantastic. The opportunities, there's really no excuse for you not to tune in somewhere, some way, somehow. As Terry Ryan, of course, 8th overall pick in the 1995 NHL draft, currently starring in Shoresy. Earlier today was doing some rehearsal for the stunt, a big explosion scene. And what show is this in? When's it coming out? When do we get to see the stunt man in action?
I'm not sure. I think it's as yet untitled. I'll keep you up to date, though.
Oh, okay.
These are things, Jason, normally if I get a speaking role or something, I don't want to seem pompous talking about this here, but if that happens, then I go in, I get to, know people to some degree, even if it's a day. This is, we're exploding a house that isn't, so we're building a fake one, part of it or whatever. They're doing the explosion. That's the construction team, the set deck team, and the Sparks team, okay? So we're doing this like an hour outside of town. This is literally a job. I'm showing up, putting on whatever this guy wears for the movie, putting on the wig to look like him, right? And I'm getting blown out of a house way away from set. I don't even see a call sheet. I sign in and sign out, and I'm out there with like 7 people, and we do it. Well, and the camera, and there'll be I forget what they call it, a split. I forget. But anyway, it'll be a second director out there that reports back, film stuff. We'll get it. And they'll go back, and I'll come home, and they'll continue with their movie. So it's not as intimate and personal when you're just in there to do one stunt.
All right, you're just a hired gun.
You're a hired gun, exactly.
Hired gun. Now, are you by chance? Were you a wrestling fan growing up?
I mean, I think it's impossible. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say fan and be part of that fandom, but I think it was impossible not to get swept away by Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior and Coco Beware, and there was action figures, there was cards. So I guess by default, being a boy in an all-boys school growing up in the 80s, I was I guess to some degree a fan.
The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Bret the Hitman Hart. He will join us tomorrow at 4:20 on Sports 1440. So I remember him way back from Stampede Wrestling. I don't know if you saw Stampede Wrestling. I don't know if they had it on the East Coast.
I know what Stampede Wrestling is. My old coach Bob Laux was in it. Little Brutus, didn't they call him that? That's what I always heard.
Bob Laux was Little Brutus?
Hey, we were told not to talk about it. It was like I'd known him for 2 years before I even brought it up.
Wow.
Yeah.
I gotta ask Bret Hart about that. Really?
That's Bob Laux, man. I heard that for years, and he confirmed it.
Jeez. Yeah. I did not know that. Well, there's some wrestling trivia for you. Ooh, that is amazing.
Great coach, too. I'd heard so much, but his bark is way worse than his bite, and ended up being just one of the best coaches. Well, I mean, there's so much. Like I was talking earlier, I don't want to get too far into it, but there's certain people that are your friends for life, and that guy's definitely one of them. And I didn't think going in that would be the case.
No. Well, you know what? I heard he was a very demanding coach. A little bit of a yeller.
He was.
But that doesn't mean that he wasn't compassionate, didn't care about his players. And so I think, as you said, maybe once you got past the rough exterior, that there was a guy that cared about you. And really for players, especially in that era, and you want a coach who cares about you. So yes, Bret the Hitman Hart, who of course I watched growing up as a kid, and Stampede Wrestling was amazing. Then him, Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Obviously, we're an unbelievable tag team. They rocked the pink, man. They rocked the pink and black for a long time. So I'm looking forward to that. Mr. Slater just sent me a note about that. So It's going to be pretty fun. A few other things to discuss. Got a lot of text flying in at 833-401-1440. Hey, TR, I'm wondering, you're from Newfoundland. How'd you end up in the WHL? That one comes in, Adam in Spruce.
Good question. I went to the Quebec Pee Wee tournament, and there was some scouts there. I was going to leave. At that time, you had to leave Newfoundland. I wasn't getting away with playing my first year bantam here and getting any better as a player. Okay. And to put it in perspective, Jason,
13, 14 years of age.
Well, I was big, and I tell you, at that age, I don't mind saying it, I really was. I was the best prospect in Newfoundland, and I went to the Quebec Pee Wee tournament. They scouted me. I was MVP, and we won the provincial 16-0. Like, I had eight, I think. I mean, you stop counting. It was just like, okay, I got to go somewhere to play. Okay, so I was going to go to Cambridge, Ontario, and play for the Winterhawks. Todd Harvey was there. I think he's a year or two older than me. He'd just been there and went to the OHL. They were starting to threaten with the idea that everybody had to go to the Q League if you're from here, and that's what happened. Now the Q League's a lot better, though. In the 90s, again, I don't want to knock them too bad, but it was pathetic. If you look at who got drafted where, who was winning the Memorial Cups, they didn't win one for like the 80s and the 90s. So for the most of, so I didn't want to go. And it was a finesse league with the guys. I even knew then I had a bit of a temper, and I was a bigger player that would probably succeed a little more in the rough stuff. Sorry to keep going. So I went to the Quebec Pee Wee tournament. There was a team there from Vancouver, or a scout there from Vancouver, and he gave me a card, and he said, I represent the Vancouver Super Series, Team Vancouver, and it was Team BC, Team Winnipeg, there was Team Northern Alberta, Team Southern, and anyway, they asked me to play, and when I came home, my dad said, I might as well take a team away. And it wasn't just me. The group ahead of us, a year older, were real good, the 76s. So he said, you, Kurt Walsh, Brian Bercich, the best 377s. He said, you guys go with them. We went out. Anyway, the rest is history. We played, Newfoundland's usually the sacrificial lamb. I've played national tournaments in baseball, ball hockey, soccer, and hockey. And usually you play the host first game, so you lose 7-1. Everybody gets a free hot dog. And those Newfoundlanders got fight, but we win. But this wasn't the case. We tied them 6-6 and nearly went up, man. I remember getting in one down the corner. Dropped our gloves, too, 4 minutes for roughing. I love the refs. And anyway, we did all right. We tied 3 games, lost 2, and a bunch of guys, 7 or 8, got scouted to go. Kurt Walsh ended up going to Buffalo in the 3rd round a few years later. Most guys went Ontario way. Me, David Price, a few more stayed out that way. And Tri-City were right there. Chico Resch and Ron Toigo. Ron, I think, owns the Vancouver Giants now. I could be wrong. I know he did for a point. Ron, they took me out to dinner, and my dad was there, and they gave him some kind of a golden handshake. I'm not sure what went down, but they guaranteed him a teaching job if he went out. And, where do you want to go? They said, well, we'd like to hide you up in Quesnel, and we're going to draft you because the draft's when you're 14. So if they weren't true to their word, I was going right back to Ontario to play in Cambridge. But they did. They ended up picking me 3rd overall. And then after that, my dad left and came home. They came out with me for the first 6 months or so, right? I'm 14, right? Yeah. And then when everything was set, they came home, and I lived with Ryan Marsh's family in Quesnel. And that's how that went.
And then didn't you have in Tri-Cities, because I had one of your teammates text me earlier this morning, one of your former teammates, I can't reveal my source, and said, ask TR about his car that he drove in Tri-Cities.
Okay, it's a lot to unpack. It is a lot to unpack. I got down there. Look, I was always a bit fun-loving.
You painted your car or something? Is this right?
I painted it, yeah. And we called it. Look, I was there for the boys, whatever, and I always felt, first of all, like my hockey team was my family, and I guess when you see an A on my chest or a C, I'm loose, that guy in the room. I'm not a guy to go in and yell at everybody and I think it was being young and being from here and having a funny accent and being out there, I just think that's how I chose to fit in. So, and it made me comfortable. And if you're confident on the ice, it's a whole lot different than if you're not. And I came out of my shell through humor. So I guess being that guy, and it just became part of my personality. So we were after practice one time. We used to go in the morning, okay? I graduated a year early when I was 16, so they call it slugs. I don't know if they still do, but you got to get up and go in. If you're not in college, you're not in high school, get up, come in, do something productive. So me, Ryan Marsh was one of the guys. We would Mark Hurley, we would come in and we would take correspondence courses and go in and do them in the dressing room. And I would also always write a company. I would if we had Colgate toothpaste, I'd look at the address on the back and I would write into Colgate and say, I'm not happy with whatever it might be. Or like Bob and Doug McKenzie, I found a mouse in the bottom of this Coke can, whatever it would be. But I would get often letters back, and I would get free Oakley sunglasses. I had a letter in Rolling Stone. We would just try, and we were sitting there one day with nothing to do, and they were painting downstairs something, and it was pink, gold, and black, and they had a spray can, and I had a Dodge Lancer, and I just said, what should we do with this? So we kind of did the Herbie the Love Bug. We put stripes right down the middle. We put my number 20 right on the front and on the top and on the back, and I just ruined a good car. And it was secondhand. It cost me $2,000. And my billets bought it, if you can believe it, back then. And they were cool with this. They knew the kind of guy I was. So not only that, okay, we do that. And every single autograph in Tri-Cities that I signed, I put a different nickname. So I would put Terry the Tornado Ryan, Terry the Tyrant Ryan, Terry, and I guess I put the Flying Rabbi one time. Well, I don't know, whatever came into my head. Terry Flying Rabbi Ryan. So I put that down, and the boys got a kick out of it. So on the back, I put Flying Rabbi. And I used to put if you could believe this, I used to put a crash test dummy mask on, and I'd have the boys sit on the corner with a camcorder. This is on tape somewhere. And I used to drive up to the stoplight and slam on my brakes at the last minute and boom, hit my head off the wheel and look at the people next to me. And they would be like, what the, and we got it all on camera. Every day was a laugh. It was a joke. We had a great team too. If we didn't run into Struds and Kamloops every year, they won 3 of 4 Memorial Cups in my year.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah. But which also helped us though, because all kinds of people were watching us play, right? And that's the other reason I went out there. Jason, look at the Memorial Cups before I went out there. It was either the OHL or the Western League, but more often the Western League in the late 80s and early 90s. So to me, it was the best league to go to. If I could get there, I would scratch and claw to do so.
Terry Ryan joins us. Quite the, that could qualify as a Ryan's rant, but it was more of a Ryan. We'd have Ryan's rant, but then we just might have Terry's Tales as a different time, brought to you by Action Electrical. As Action Electrical, by the way, tonight they are having their 50th year celebration. It was 50 years ago. Don started it in his basement. Pretty amazing. And he's also, the big man is him and his lovely wife, Grace, are both celebrating their 80th birthdays. She turned 80 a few months ago. He's turning 80 later on in next month, actually. And so it's 50 years as a company, 80 years together. They've been married for 56 years. So a big shout out to Action Electrical and the big event they're having tonight. A great family run company. 4:16 on Sports 1440, Jason Gregor alongside Terry Ryan. When we return, we're going to talk about TR's favorite team, the team that drafted him. What's the expectations, and do they have too many Smurfs? Let's be blunt. Do they have too many small guys? We'll get to Tony Marinaro when we return. Gregor Ryan on the Thursday edition of the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
There's 2 seasons in Alberta, winter and construction. During these days of traffic barricades and slower commutes, GS Construction reminds you those crews are improving our communities. They're rehabilitating and upgrading Edmonton's infrastructure all across the city. When you see the barricades and run into a traffic backup, remember, the crews are there to help. Drive slow and be patient. Help make our city better and join the GS Construction team. See what they're hiring for on Indeed.com. GS Construction, laying the groundwork for your community since 1974.
Edmonton's premium live music and party venue is
On the Rocks.
Check out Bingo Tunes on Monday. Perform on the best stage in town with karaoke on Wednesdays. Learn how to salsa with Salsa Rocks on Thursdays. And every weekend, OTR goes live.
With your favorite bands on the OTR stage and DJ Kenny K.
For everything that's going on at On the Rocks, give us a follow.
Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.
At On the Rocks, EDM.
Eat well, party hard.
On the Rocks.
On the Rocks.
On the Rocks. Open every day till 2 a.m.
The job isn't done until the last load is hauled, and having a semi-trailer out of commission is not an option.
Whether replacing or adding to your convoy, Edmonton Trailer has a huge inventory of new and used semi-trailers, trusted by the gravel, logging, oil field, fluids, and freight industries. Find a trailer right for you online or at one of their 3 locations. For sales, service, parts, rental, and finance, when you're in it for the long haul, Edmonton Trailer.
The Junior Prospects Hockey League is entering its 2nd season of gameplay. The JPHL now offers academic and athletic opportunities in the U14, 15, 17, and U18 age divisions. All JPHL games are broadcast online on Silent Ice TV with a showcase-style game schedule and high level of travel and accommodations for its team, staff, and players. To learn more about why the JPHL is the fastest-growing elite hockey academy stream in Western Canada, visit juniorprospectshockeyleague.com. Christensen Communities, the name in active adult living. Enjoy retirement living without compromise. At Christensen, we understand that each lifestyle is unique. We are committed to providing choice through optional dining, personal services, recreation programs, and care plans to suit your current and future needs. Enjoy maintenance-free living and build new friendships in a safe, independent community. Large suites with full kitchens and in-suite laundry, on-site amenities.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
My memory is muddy. What's this river that I'm in? If New Orleans is sinking, man, and I don't want to swim.
Oh, gosh. I haven't heard that tune in a while. That is an absolute beauty. Woo! The con man, he is back. He is back and ready to roll. Jason Gregor, Terry Ryan with you on Sports 1440. Also live on Oilers Nation at YouTube. Hit the subscribe button while you're there as we keep building up subscribers, which is fantastic. Yeah, you can text the show 833-401-0063. 1440. And it's time to go around the NHL, brought to you by McDonald's. And for a limited time only, you can enjoy the Mighty McMuffin or the Mighty McGriddles breakfast sandwiches made with bacon, egg, sauce, and cheese on a McGriddle or a McMuffin. Tony Marinaro from the Sick podcast covers the Montreal Canadiens, will be joining us momentarily. TR, I know the game's different now, but when you look at your beloved Habs, because that's your team, from afar, I'm like, yeah, they got some skill, but it's all the same. They got a lot of small guys. That a concern for you?
Totally. People say, I always hear them say, oh, so-and-so, Johnny Good could never play back then, and there's way more room for the small player. All I know is that the average size is bigger. I was average, almost 6'1", 195. Now it's bigger. I read recently it's almost 6'2", 205. So if the size is getting bigger, you can't tell me that. I know there's exceptions, but back then, Theoren Fleury played in the league. Steve Sullivan played in the league. There were people, they might have been a different style. It might be a little bit chippier back then. But in my mind, and I don't think I need to go any further than look at the last 5 or 6 without even thinking about it. Teams who won the Stanley Cup, just look at their defense. You like Carolina? Look how big their defense are, right? Yeah. So I don't think that over 4 rounds, on top of that, combined with the hardest sport to play playoffs, I don't care what you say to me, 4 rounds of possibly 7 games of every second night, it does. The proof, again, is that every year, whoever wins has a mix of it. You can't have no skill. Lots of small players have won the Stanley Cup, but as a rule, the teams that win have big, tough players.
Yeah, and you look at Montreal's back end. Michael Matheson, David Savard's big guy's kind of slow at this point. Justin Barron, Caden Gooley, Chris Weidman. Like Montreal's defense, man. Like I don't see any way that they're going to be significantly improved with their back end. And you know what? They're in a rebuild. That's fine. But I say, oh, you know what? Montreal's going to take a big step this year. And I'm just like, how? I don't see it. Like, I'm sorry. I look at their back end and their goaltending, and I'm like, man, that's 2 pretty major question marks.
And a smaller, I'm actually, first of all, I'll say this. You know who I'm concerned for is Wi-Fi. Jack Guy, is that how you say that?
Yeah.
Because there's not much toughness there. And look at the players that he's going to play against. Look at Ryan Reeves and Lucic. What's it or the McEwen? Like, it's, there are divisions that are going old school here that have guys there that are going to drop the gloves, and it's not going to be any screwing around here. And Montreal, I think, I don't know, just to protect the guys who fight a little bit, I would definitely get someone like that. And I think just overall, I don't know, through trade, through whatever, I don't think they're too small. I think they're way too small and not enough jam. It's one thing to be Gallagher. Hey, yeah. I love Alex Newhook. I watched him. I think he's going to break out. But Alex is like a lot of other guys on that team. He's not really physical. You need to surround yourself with some level of toughness and tension, right? At least I think. And again, point to the teams who win.
Yeah. Terry Ryan, of course, former Montreal Canadian, as we preview the Habs. Tony Marinaro from the Sick podcast, a longtime reporter for the Montreal Canadiens, joins us now. Tony, my man, glad to have you on the show. I appreciate you doing this. Give me your thoughts. I know you're tapped into that team. When I look at their defense core and I look at their goaltending, I know they're in a rebuild, but is there any reason to think they can be that much improved from last year?
They don't have, and thanks for having me, guys. They don't have a player on their team who plays ice hockey as good as Terry Ryan plays ball hockey. That's the problem right there, because I saw, 14 or 17 points at the ball hockey championships? Was something like that, right? Leading the team in points.
A close eye. It's good to talk to you again, my man. And you keep
been a while.
Close eye. You're right, 14. Thanks for paying
attention. It's been a while. So congratulations on that.
Thanks. I really appreciate it.
I think the rebuild was a well thought out idea. I've been preaching for it for what it's worth since 2009. That was the year of the centennial. The Canadiens had about 10 players whose contract was up at the end of the year. And because it was the centennial year, they wanted to celebrate it. Instead of trading players at the deadline, they chose to stick with them, and they got swept in the first round by the Bruins. It ended up being a terrible decision. And then Bob Gainey went on a one-day shopping spree and opened up the vault for Brian Jonta, opened up the vault for Mike Camilleri. Prior to that, he had traded for Scott Gomez. And then they went on this miraculous run in 2010. But in the end, it ended up catching up with them because Yaroslav Halak could only be so hot for 2 rounds and not for 4. So in a city and on a team that has a hard time attracting free agents, you have to build through the draft. The opportunities they had to draft really good players by picking 3rd overall twice, 1st overall a couple of years ago, 5th overall this past season in the draft. The challenges are they never really had a great draft when they did bad. So they screwed up with the Galchenyuk pick. It wasn't a great draft year, but, you know, they could have had Morgan Riley, or they could have had Forsberg, or they could have had, I think, Vasilevsky. And then the Kotkaniemi draft, they could have had Brady Tkachuk. They could have had Quinn Hughes. That backfired on them as well. And now we'll have to wait and see whether Juraj Slafkovsky is going to be the best player from that draft and where David Reinbacher is going to end up fitting in, who was picked 5th overall. So the Canadians will be better this year than they were a year ago. And so far, I think things are going according to Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes' plan.
I didn't like what they did with Slafkovsky. I don't like it for any organization. Teenagers, you're a unicorn if you can succeed in the NHL as a teenager. It's just very difficult to do. And I know he was in the American League. It was like, man, the guy's coming over Europe, put him in the juniors and let him dominate. Let him build his confidence up, and there's nothing wrong with it. So I know it's early. I don't know if you've seen him skating or not, Tony, but
to their defense, Jason, if I can, to their defense, he was a dominant player at the Olympics playing versus men, and he was a top 10 player at the World Championships playing versus men. Having said all of that, when a player is really big, like Slafkovsky was big, 6'4", 238 pounds, they end up being dominant players at a younger age because they just, they go through guys.
Yeah.
And when you end up playing in the National Hockey League, you end up going up against a lot of guys who are as big as you, as strong as you, or bigger and stronger. The game is faster. And if you don't have your head up, you're going to be in an awful lot of trouble. I think they skipped a very important development step with Slafkovsky. I would have kept him to play in Europe one more year, or I would have played him in the American Hockey League with the Laval Rocket for about a year. They made their decision. I don't agree with it. I would have sent them back to the World Juniors a year ago. After the World Juniors, I would have sent it to the American Hockey League. They decided to stick with them in the National Hockey League because they believe the best development is going to be under their watchful eye in Montreal. Only time will tell, guys.
I have a question, Tony. I spent a lot of time watching Alex Newhook growing up.
Yeah.
And he skates with us in the summer, and he trains real hard. I go to the same gym. He's got a trainer. I mean, this guy is dialed in. It was no surprise to me he went in the first round. It was no surprise that he was successful. Won the Stanley Cup. But, he was buried in the depth chart a little bit there. I think he's going to break out and be a great player in Montreal. I don't think, well, he hasn't hit his ceiling anyway, but I just think he's got more to give. What's the word there? And with so many possible centers, are they even are they thinking about maybe putting him on the wing? What's the buzz with Newhook?
Yeah, the one thing they have right now, Terry, on this team is they have a lot of players who can play center and can play wing. So Nick Suzuki obviously is slotted in as the number 1 centerman on this team until proven otherwise. Kirby Dach, you would think, is slotted in as the number 2 centerman for now on this team. That's where Gordon would like to see him eventually. That's where Hughes would like to see him eventually, but he was absolutely awesome playing right wing on a line with Suzuki and Caulfield last year. There is no Montreal Canadiens player that had the chemistry that Dach had with Suzuki and Caulfield last year. So that's something to look out for.
Okay.
Personally, I look at it another way, and that is I wouldn't mind seeing Sean Monahan start the season on that line. Why am I saying that? I'm going to tell you why. Monahan is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. He was an unrestricted free agent last year. He had picked up 17 points in 25 games. Unfortunately, he got hurt. So what happened? The Montreal Canadiens said, listen, Sean, you want to get the big money in unrestricted free agency? We can't give it to you. You're not going to get it. You were hurt, but you had a good time with us. You were picking up points while you were healthy. Why don't we try and do it again? And if you pick up points, well, then we're going to deal you at the deadline. I would have Monahan on that line. But it's also possible that they could put Newhook on that line, either if they see it the way I see it and put Monahan there to start with, or they might put Doc there to start with, or they might put Newhook there to start with, or they might put Josh Anderson. Personally, I would put Anderson maybe when they play on the road to insulate those guys versus other teams and bigger players that might want to intimidate them. But I'll say this, Newhook's acquisition is not unanimous in Montreal. There are a lot of people worried that the Canadiens didn't have to make this move or maybe force this move or probably should have held on to the draft picks. The one thing that comforts me is that Kent Hughes knows Alex Newhook like the back of his hand. And if there's one thing that Kent Hughes has shown me so far is that he knows a lot about people. And he's a real good judge of character. We saw it in the acquisition of Mike Matheson. And so he knows Newhook, and he knows that Newhook's going to give him everything. What Marty St. Louis likes players that play a vision game. He likes players that play an IQ game. Because of that, I think Newhook can have success. Where so many people are worried is that you start taking a look at the Canadiens' top six now, and you better hope that Slafkowski is going to pan out sooner than later, because he would add some much-needed size to a top six that is small. Like I was on the radio earlier today with George Larac and Stéphane Gonzalez on BPM Sports Radio in Montreal. It's Montreal's French all-sports radio station. And what we talked about was, with 11 of 15 players going to the Canadiens rookie combine under 6 feet, is the future of the Montreal Canadiens too small? So I started to do some digging, guys. And in the last 6 years, the last 6 Stanley Cup champions, they're all 6'1" or bigger. And they're all about anywhere between 195 on average weight to 203, 204.
Yeah.
But what I noticed is, if one is more important than the other, you know what it is? Weight is more important than height. So the Canadiens will probably say, you don't have to be big, but you do have to be strong. You take a look at Suzuki. He's thick. He's built like a wall. He's got a real strong core. But anyway, that was some of my findings today. The last team to win the cup that was small in both categories were the Pittsburgh Penguins 7 years ago, who were, I think, dead last in the league in height and second last in the league in weight. They were able to win the cup anyway, but at the time, they had the 2 best players in the world, in Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. But I'll just add to my findings, guys, because a lot of people talk about them being small, and they are. But the most important things that history has shown us here in the last decade of cup winners is weight is important. Depth at the center ice position, especially on the top 2 lines, is important. If you're going to have weight, you need to have it on your top line, and you need to have it on your top 3 or top 4 on defense. You need an average age of about 28 years old to win the Stanley Cup. And you need a goalie who doesn't have to be the best goalie in the world. He just has to be real hot at the right time of the season.
Yeah. Aiden Hill puts his hand up, and Vegas fans are like, hey, what's going on? As Tony Marinaro joins us.
You're right.
1440. And that, it leads to the question, Carey Price. It wasn't a surprise where he came out and said, hey, it looks like my career, unfortunately, is probably over. So, you know what? You need a goaltender. You got Jake Allen. You got the Smith. Samuel Montembeault. But Montembeault played pretty well last season, Tony. Could he be a diamond in the rough, or are they hoping maybe that he just builds off of what he did last season?
I'm not going to go as far as to say that he could be a diamond in the rough, but I will go as far as to say that he proved me wrong last year, because when they acquired him from the Florida Panthers a couple of years ago, and I saw him play his first couple of games, I said, this guy's not a National Hockey League goalie. So he not only proved to be a National Hockey League goalie, but down the stretch, he stole the number 1 job from Jake Allen in Montreal. Now it's probably easier to steal it when you're in a no-pressure situation and no one really expects you to win. Okay, but he still did it. And then he went to the World Hockey Championships, and I looked at the Team Canada roster on paper. They didn't look very good to me. Now, I don't know how strong or not the other teams were, but I know this. I know they won the World Hockey Championships, and I know that Montembeault was very good. So far, he's proved me wrong. I'll say this. He could be a number 1 in the context that is, they're rebuilding, they're developing, and they're trying to get better each and every day. And I don't think he's hit his ceiling yet. Having said all of that, I will say this. When the Montreal Canadiens will not only turn the corner, but be a very competitive team to be a legitimate contender, which I think can happen in 4+ years from now, I don't think Samuel Montembeault is going to be their goalie.
Okay. Is there anybody that's going to be a surprise in Montreal this season? Do you think that here's a guy, you know what, watch for him. This is somebody I think it's either going to have a breakout year or somebody that people really aren't expecting to be an impact player?
I don't think, like in Montreal, there's a lot of the talk around Logan Mailloux, and I don't think Mailloux is going to make the big club this year. He's got a great tool set, that I can tell you. He's big, he's strong, he can skate, he can move. A defenseman scoring a Michigan goal in a junior hockey game, I mean, you don't see that often. You see 50 goal scorers do that, 40 goal scorers do that, 100-point players do that. He impresses the heck out of me when it comes to hockey. But he already missed a year of junior hockey a couple of years ago during COVID and during everything that happened. I don't believe in skipping development steps. Look what happened to Alex Galchenyuk. I am not comparing the two, but I'm just saying when you take a year off of junior hockey, it usually catches up with you. But I'll say this. Since it's easier to make a team as a fourth-line player more so than it is to make it to be a top 6 defenseman, like Emil Heineman intrigues me because he's got an NHL shot and he can score goals. So he could be a wild card. Farrell, the other guys, like there's some interesting names. And I know that everything plays itself out at camp, but I wouldn't expect any surprises from the beginning because think about it. What are the Canadians doing? What are they trying to do? What are they trying to accomplish? Yeah, they want to win the Stanley Cup, but no one in the organization thinks they're going to go out and do it this year, right? As a matter of fact, most people, if they were betting, would probably bet that they wouldn't make the playoffs than that they would. So if there's a player who shows you something at camp, do they put him on the team or do they actually make him develop because they have time on their hands and they can wait? They have time on their hands. They can wait. I don't see anybody making this team that shouldn't make it. But I've been wrong before. But I'll continue to give my opinions because I'd rather have opinions that are wrong than not have an opinion at all. Because podcasting, radio, and television isn't all that interesting.
Tony
Right?
Arber's that guy.
Yeah.
He looked like he came on the radar for many Canadians, myself included, really, with his fists. Had some good fights. I went to some games in Montreal last year. I watched them closely. I thought he carried the puck more. He had more confidence as the year went on. I believe he might have finished with an injury. In all the same, I just thought he got a lot more confident with the puck. Like, what's his ceiling? What are the expectations for that guy? Now, I mean, he's a veteran. Yeah. He is a decent player. Is it drop of the mitts more than anything, or
Yeah. His season ended in a scrap with Vinny Desharnais of the Edmonton Oilers.
Yes,
that's how his season ended in a scrap that was at the Bell Center. His shoulder popped out, basically. Look, this guy surprised a lot of people. I mean, no one thought that this guy was going to make the team a year ago. So who am I to say that no one's going to make it this year? Because it was the same philosophy last year, and yet Jack Guy made it. So it kills my point that I actually made a couple of minutes ago. But it's impressive that he stood up for his teammates. One of the things that he did, and not everyone knows the whole back end to the story, but his first fight where he opened everyone's eyes was versus Zach Cashin.
Yeah.
And Cashin the year before had steamrolled over Montembeault, which I think was Super Bowl weekend the year before, and nobody did anything. And Jack Guy actually admitted that it was talked about and it was something that he paid attention to. And he, it was part of the reason why he fought Cashin. And he did a real good job. Like, I don't know if this guy lost any fights last year, maybe close to losing one. But I'll say this. Even though I know he can handle it, I'm a little bit concerned for this guy this year. Why? Because he doesn't refuse anybody. And now all of a sudden, he's got Lucic in his division who wants to hammer him. He's got Ryan Reeves in his division who wants to hammer him. Ottawa's getting stronger. They have a couple of guys there. And I'm not going to say he's going to bite off more than he can chew, because he's more than capable of defending himself. And I am no expert when it comes to fighting, but I know that George Larac is, and I've had these conversations with him. And George finds that Arber's just way too open and a little bit unorthodox in his stance and the way he fights, and that it's good enough to beat up some guys, but he'll be in trouble versus some big-time heavyweights in the league. And look, Arber Xhekaj fights a lot better than Mike Komisarek did, but Mike Komisarek at one time bit off more than he can chew with Milan Lucic.
Yeah.
And his career was never the same. I just don't want that to happen to Xhekaj, because, listen, Ryan Reeves, Milan Lucic, the McDermotts of this world, I mean, there's 3 or 4 guys in that league that are Jack the Giant killers. And he's strong, but he's a good player. I don't know how much he has to do it. Like, he feels like he has to do it every time he plays or every time he goes up against a tough guy. But he can play. You know, Lyle Odeline was on that Montreal Canadiens 93 team. And Odeline wasn't scared of anybody, and Odeline would fight anybody. But at one point you saw, you know, Odeline was probably better than a lot of people thought. And Xhekaj reminds me a lot of Odeline. I think he's better than a lot of people think, and I don't think he has to do it as much as – I don't know how much fighting is prevalent in the game today, but since he's going to be challenged, it wouldn't probably be a bad idea for the Canadians to have an insurance policy.
Doesn't hurt, man, when you got a lot of young guys, young, small guys.
You know, I know that Michael Pezzetta's there, and his heart's in the right place. And, and by the way, George Larac has been giving fighting lessons and fighting tips to Michael Pezzetta. And he's gone on my podcast to say that he'd love to work with Xhekaj. I don't know if he started or not, because even if he did, he wouldn't say it. You know, that stuff stays confidential. But that would be something to look out for, because once he started to give tips to Pezzetta already, he might end up giving tips to Xhekaj.
Something to watch for.
By the way, what do you guys drink and eat in Edmonton? George Larac comes on my podcast and he says, if he still played in the National Hockey League today, after 7 or 8 years removed, at his age, he can still beat up anyone in the National Hockey League. I told him, George, you're nuts, man. I said, George, you're nuts. Stop saying stuff like this.
Well, George, but he's around 280 right now, so he could hold his own probably pretty easy on the ice now.
He's around 280, and he's vegan, by the way.
I know. We always joke.
That must be some pretty heavy salad, let me tell you.
We always joke, which vegan did he eat? That's what we always like to ask him. So, Tony, it's always good to talk to you, my man. Continued success with the Sick podcast. It's doing great. I love watching. I love the passion, like the singing, and we'll talk to you throughout the year.
Jason, I love what you've been able to do here. And sports radio was, everyone thought it was a thing of the past in Edmonton, and you were able to revive it with what you're doing. So you're doing awesome. Some of your colleagues are doing awesome, and I'm happy to see Terry back in the game.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you, my
Tony.
friend.
See you guys. Cheers.
See you
later, buddy.
Tony Marinaro from the Sick podcast. And man, if you're a Habs fan, you watch his podcast, man. It gets fired up. He's singing. It's hilarious. It's quite funny. We'll come back. We have 5 questions on the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440 and live on Oilers Nation YouTube and Facebook.
Come into Jiffy Lube for a Pennzoil Platinum full synthetic oil change and receive a $20 digital gift card to one of over 30 merchants, such as Cineplex or Bass Pro Shops. For a location near you, visit
The future of the Montreal Canadiens is too small. So I started to do some digging. I started
JackpotCity.net. You can do amazing things with just one casino chip. Discover a world of incredible casino games with over 500 high-quality online slot games, including the world-renowned progressive jackpot slot, Mega Moolah. Play for free at JackpotCity.net and get treated as a VIP 24/7. So visit JackpotCity.net today on your tablet, laptop, or mobile. Jackpot City, a whole world of casino games. 18 plus. Please play responsibly. This is not a gambling website.
It all started with two brothers. 30 years later, Leduc Goldsmiths is still here for you. When it comes to all your jewelry needs, just ask the guys at Leduc Goldsmiths. Family owned and run from top to bottom, from beginning to end. Their family jewelry store is your family jewelry store. You won't find the same face-to-face service anywhere else. It's the reason their customer base is filled with return customers, even from out of town. Leduc Goldsmiths on Main Street, Leduc. Leduc's jewelry store, family owned and operated for over 30 years.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
.450 as we continue on Thursday afternoon. Jason Gregor, Terry Ryan with you. Now, TR, I don't know about you during the commercial breaks, but now because we're live on YouTube anyway, I'm on YouTube, and I found myself down a rabbit hole, and suddenly I'm watching some rooster coin contest during the commercial break to see who won. Like it's not something I was expecting to do on a Thursday afternoon during the show, because I usually I know I have a bad habit, and there's certain times I don't really go on like Instagram or stuff very often, or YouTube, but when I do, I'll get stuck on it for like 45 minutes watching the most idiotic either videos or contests. And so I couldn't believe it. For literally the last 5 minutes, I'm watching videos on who has the best rooster call.
Whoa. Yeah, I get once in a while it happens to me. I got caught last night watching ratting videos, ratting. I didn't even hear the term before.
What is it?
I don't know. It seemed to me that people out in the fields, I guess farmers for the most part, or people that work around a farm, at least the videos that I saw, and they got some way to, I don't know how they do it, but they bring their dogs out and rats come out of the ground. I guess there must be, maybe they flood them out or something. Yeah. But then they just literally send the dogs after the rats, and they come out by the tens, sometimes by the hundreds, and there's just rats everywhere. People picking them off, dogs throwing them around like balls. Never heard of the term before. My buddy said it. Yeah, my buddy said, yeah, I'm going ratting. I said, you're going ratting? Where are you going ratting? My buddy's barn. Anyway, I went online, and there you go. Check it out.
Oh, geez. Nice. So, well, I know that sometimes they'll light a fire at one end of the hole, and then usually it pushes them out the other side, or flooding is another way to do it. So, well, there you go. I'm not sure which is worse, rooster calls or ratting. We might both be battling for biggest waste of our time. Yeah. Let's get to 5 questions, which is never a waste of your time. Brought to you by The Brick. And don't waste your time, because the tent sale, baby, it's ending tonight. Get the best sleep you deserve and get it sooner at The Brick's next day mattress delivery. You can save up to 50% off right now on select mattresses, because trust me, sleeping comfortably matters. Check it out at The Brick and thebrick.com.
It's time for 5 questions on the Jason Gregor Show.
All right, guys. Question number 1. Bob McKenzie released his preseason draft rankings. I know we're a ways away from the draft, but right now, if you had to look ahead into your crystal ball, who do you think will be the first overall pick next summer?
Go ahead, Jay.
Wow. Man, this is really hard, right? Celebrini seems to be the Bob's consensus to start out of Boston University. But I'm going to say this. Don't sleep on Demidov out of Russia. I know that there's maybe a risk on everything that's going on there right now, but man, I've talked to a few scouts and they love him. So I know it'd be a big risk. I guess it depends who's picking number 1. And the Capitals, they don't look that good. If the Capitals have the number 1 pick, for sure, and they win the lottery, that's who I would take.
I know the consensus is Macklin Celebrini. I was surprised by how much. I think 9 of 10. I read that article that McKenzie came out with. Whoa. I don't get the feeling he's consensus like that, though. But so I'm going to go with London Knights Sam Dickinson. 6'3", D-man, 204. I'm only trying to go outside the box to give some people, listeners, something to think about. If all my money was on the line, I would go with the Scouts. But I love this guy, and it's the only one that I've actually seen play a couple of times. Sam Dickinson, big guy, 12 penalty minutes. I don't get that. I know the game's not physical as it was, but 62 games, 12 minutes on D. You got to take someone out in front of the net. I know that concerns me a bit, but you can't teach 6'3".
Question number 2, since we just discussed the Habs with Tony, when do you think the Montreal Canadiens get back into the playoffs?
Well, I'm a big believer that rebuilds, and I've studied it a lot. I've researched it a lot. Like, everybody wants to be a quick. It's rarely quick. It's a lot of pain. I know they had the Cinderella run in 21, which is great. They went all the way to Stanley Cup final. But if you look at it, they've missed the playoffs the last 2 years. They made it the 2 before that. Honestly, I'm going to say 5 years. Sorry, Habs fans. It takes a long time to rebuild. Tony outlined it's not like their draft picks. They didn't hit on Kotkaniemi. They haven't hit like on some of those other ones. So I'm going to say another 5 years, unfortunately, for Montreal.
They've got some great talent at some point, I read a stat today. Caulfield has 48 goals in his last 82. They've got some flashy stats. I like Suzuki, their captain. 5 rookie D last year means they must be, in 2 years from now, they're going to be seasoned veterans. Although I'm looking at the teams that they're going to have to beat out to get into the playoffs as much as I'm looking at them. And I figured I was going to go with 3 years. Surprised you went with 5. I think it's closer to 5 than anything, but I'll just say 3.
Question number 3, Thursday night football tonight. The Eagles right now favored by 6 over the Vikings over at playalberta.ca. With that and the over-under set at 49, what would be the smart bet in your opinion?
For me, I think the first game, the Vikings, they both could have played better, but I think the Vikings just had a really, really off game. So I think they're going to cover. No one's picking them to do so either. I think they're going to at least cover. And I'm like you, Jason. I hate going under. I don't even like watching a game if I go under. So for no other reason than I want to see points scored, and I think there'll be mistakes, hopefully on the defensive side, I'm going to go with over.
I had 2 stretches of under on Monday night and the Elks game, and both were. So I'm done. Even though I was right, I'm like, there's no chance it's going to be 3 in a row. So yeah, I will take the over. Honestly, I think there's, man, I look at the receiving core. Look at Kirk Cousins had the second most passing yards in week 1. The Eagles, I know they got a victory. I don't think they played very well. New England kind of beat themselves more than anything else. Goddard will actually get some involvement tonight offensively. So yeah, I think it's going to be over 40.
Question number 4 today on a CBS radio show. Hall of Fame quarterback Dan Marino says his peers would throw for 6,000 yards in today's game. The regular season record is 5,400 set by Peyton Manning. Are you buying what Marino says, or do you think it's a bit of an exaggeration?
Well, Joe Montana the other day had mentioned Dan Marino, and arguably one of the greatest just pure passing quarterbacks ever. That's hard to argue. Like, look at Dan's numbers in a time when it was running back central, right? Like, everybody was running backs. They were running the ball all over the place, and Dan Marino's throwing for 1,000 yards more than anyone else. And go look at how many pass attempts he had. Like, just look at how many pass attempts guys have now. I don't think it's a major stretch to think that guys like that who, you know what, now the difference was you got more mobile quarterbacks nowadays, right? Like, Patrick Mahomes will run a little bit more. Dan Marino, right? Like, he could barely run 10 yards. Right? That's not a knock on him. That's just a fact. He was, remember when near the end of his career, man, it looked like he was wearing Depends. His padding was so big in his ass just because he was getting rocked all the time. But for a pure passing standpoint, like Doug Flutie threw for 6,000, and keep in mind, they also have an extra game now. So I think we will see a 6,000-yard passer very soon.
Marino claimed that him and his peers would all throw for 6,000, correct, Connor?
He mentioned his peers, yes.
Well,
I don't know how many of those
me, but he didn't want to say it. He didn't want to just say me, so he throws in his peers.
Yeah, I mean, I get his point. Okay, I get his point because the rules tend to favor quarterbacks, at least passing-wise now. and there's an extra game. An extra game when there was only 16 moving to 17 is a big portion, right? That's going to be a lot of yards one way or the other. So I think there's some truth to what he says. I don't know about all of his peers, but yeah, if he played now, if you could somehow do that, of course the athletes are more evolved and the game is different, but yeah, why not? 6,000. I mean, he threw for over 5 with totally different circumstances.
Final question for you guys today. It was on this day in 1985. Golden Girls first aired on NBC. Bit of a two-parter here. Were you a fan of Golden Girls, and what is your favorite sitcom of all time?
Go ahead, TR.
Yeah, I was a fan of Golden Girls because there wasn't as many options. I think now I just wouldn't come across it because I would never put on a bunch of women over 65 trying to make me laugh. It just wouldn't happen. But back then it was on TV and you watched it. And by the way, I liked it for what it was. And, you know, you take it with a grain of salt. But what are my favorites? Okay, look, my favorite is 3 shows that I find by far funnier than anything else in my subjective viewpoint. Okay, those are Seinfeld, Arrested Development, and Curb Your Enthusiasm. Do you count Curb as a sitcom? I'm not really sure, but definitely 1A and 1B. Seinfeld, Arrested Development. I think they were innovative for different reasons. Seinfeld kind of, you look back now, it's a little bit dated, but you think of when that came out and the whole thing. You know, it's about nothing. There was never a point. No hugs, no lessons. What was it Larry David said? Anyway, that was some of the. It was just, and it really, there are people that are almost, you know, you're rooting for, but they're kind of sleazebags, really, if you look at the plots of all the shows. So I think it was brilliant how they did that. Arrested Development, I think, was just as innovative. I think it went over the heads of a lot of people, and it never really caught on like I thought it would. I think it's the funniest show I've ever seen. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, Seinfeld obviously is one that's going to get my vote. It's unbelievable. Another great sitcom, though, just from character development and you know, they had so many funny lines, and they were able to incorporate a lot of different characters. Was Cheers. Yeah. Cheers was outstanding. Rhea Perlman was hilarious. Right. Then you even had Diane and Rebecca and how different they were. So when they replaced the character with another one, they didn't go with the same. I thought it worked well. Cliff Clavin was an absolute classic. I don't care. Like Norm walking, like Norm epitomized a lot of people. You can go to a neighborhood pub and there's a Norm in a lot of those neighborhood pubs. Just happy, jolly guy. Everybody knows him. Hey, Norm. Like, and you would love to have that. I don't care who you were. When you walked in and people noticed you were there and said, hey, how's it going? This, you know, makes your day better. And then, you know, you got the little bit of the anal guy like Fraser. So yeah, Cheers was, Cheers was close, but Seinfeld, it's probably because the age I was at when Seinfeld came on and a lot of the topics that they talked about, like Master of My Domain. I still remember the first time I'm watching the show and I was just like, is that what they're talking about? Like it was mind blowing. It was so good. And Kramer's, like, just his body language. Like the thing that I love about Seinfeld, I can sit down now. I rewatch Seinfeld and it always puts me in a good mood. Doesn't matter how crap of a day I've had. I'll go find a Seinfeld show if I need to, because I know that's going to make me laugh. And it almost doesn't matter which episode it is, because what Seinfeld did that I think most sitcoms didn't do was they're not supporting characters, but they made characters that came in once every 10 episodes, maybe once or twice a year, and they were so good that you remembered them. Like, think about Bookman. Bookman was there 2 times, and Bookman is still one of the greatest characters of all. His speech to Seinfeld in his apartment is still one of the greatest sitcom speeches of all time.
Totally. The soup Nazi, even Newman, you think he's in every episode. I looked, he's only in 62 of the 190 or whatever. You know, there was just so many soup Nazis in one episode.
But yeah, Babu. Oh my goodness. Babu. What about Mr. Childs? Oh God, he was hilarious. Like
I just read a book and it, you know, it just points out how different it was and innovative. And if you really think back now, of course, so many things and a lot of brilliant shows like The Office, Parks and Rec, it kind of went that documentary style. Arrested Development's a lot different, like I mentioned. Now HBO has a lot more. But at the time, if you compare that with like Steve Urkel and Growing Pains and all decent shows, but this was way different. It was like nothing else before it. And every Thursday, it's the only show that I remember. I mean, I remember watching Golden Girls. I don't know what day. I remember every Thursday, especially in the minors, we were like, okay, get all the boys, go to whichever hotel room and watch Seinfeld. It was a big thing.
Is that unreal? Unreal. TR, man, this is unreal. I can't wait to have Ryan Marsh on. He'll probably have a few stories about his former junior buddy. So that's going to be awesome. I look forward to chatting with you on Monday. Good luck in the stunt tomorrow. Crush it. All right. We'll look forward to seeing it whenever it comes out in the unnamed movie or yet to be named movie.
I'll keep you up to date. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
And by the way, I want to point one thing out, JG. When I
Sure.
said it went over most people's heads, Arrested Development, I didn't mean I'm some elite smart guy. I meant you got to watch them in order and really pay attention. And a lot of people don't have that attention span in today's world. That's what I meant. But I recommend starting at the beginning. You won't be disappointed.
Job is unbelievable in that show.
Oh, Buster Bluth. Oh, yes.
Have a good one, buddy. Have a great weekend. That's Terry Ryan. Let's get to a quick sports 1440 update brought to you by Edmonton Kubota. And like you and like us, they're super happy to have sports radio back in the capital region. And they are celebrating by all their compact BX tractors right now, 0% financing for 84 months. Shop in-store or online at edmontonkubota.com. Here is Connor Halley.
It's time for a Sports 1440 update.
Week 2 in the NFL kicking off tonight. The Thursday night matchup in Philadelphia as the 1-0 Eagles hosting the 0-1 Vikings. Kickoff 6:15. You can join Brandon Douglas at the Canadian Brew House Manning location, 155th and 37th Street. The Ottawa Senators have assigned veteran forward Josh Bailey to a PTO. The 33-year-old played his entire 15-year career with the Islanders, recording 8 goals and 17 assists in 64 games. Major League Baseball, the Blue Jays in action tonight, looking to avoid being swept by the Texas Rangers. First pitch in about a minute. Jays should have Matt Chapman back in the lineup after he was removed from the 10-day injured list. Elsewhere, you'll have the Red Sox taking on the Yankees in Game 2 of their doubleheader. The Red Sox won the first game 5-0. Rays take on the Orioles, and it's the White Sox hosting the Twins. Some finals, Pirates knocked off the Nationals 2-0. It was the Reds falling to the Tigers 8-2. Marlins losing on the road to the Milwaukee Brewers 4-2, and the Mets beating up on the Diamondbacks 11-1. One game postponed due to rain. That's the Rockies and the Giants. Coming up in hour 4 of the Jason Gregor Show, we'll be joined by Sportsnet Mark Spector and the head coach of the Spruce Grove Saints, Ryan Marsh.
This has been a Sports 1440 update.
How exciting is it to have Sports Talk Radio back in Edmonton?
Tie game, bottom of the ninth with a full count. The kick, the pitch. It's high. It's far.
and the way the sunlight plays upon her head. I hear the sound of a gentle wind on the wind.
Sports radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Little Beach Boys for you on a Thursday afternoon. Welcome back to the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440, presented as always by PlayAlberta.ca, where you can get in the game and remember, if maybe you just you'd like to play lottery, it's very easy. Of course, Lotto 649, and they have the big Friday Lotto Max tomorrow, 10 mil. Somebody just won it. Somebody just took home a cool 17 schmil on Tuesday. So check it out. Stay within your limits. PlayAlberta.ca. Jason Gregor alongside Connor Halley. We got a lot of text flying in. Hey, boys, I have to say I'm loving all of your co-hosts, but TR might be my favorite. The guy's just made for this. Great storyteller. Very humble. Really funny. Great pickup, Greg's. That one comes in from Simon. Hey, man, you know what? I've gotten to know Terry for the last 5 years, and we've always wanted to do stuff together. And so it's nice that, we can do it. And you know what? He's really committed, which is great. He, he's bugging cons in the morning. Who's on with us today? I want to do research on stuff. And so he wants 5 questions in advance, which is awesome. So he's going to take anything he does very seriously. And obviously, I'm rewatching Shoresy right now. It's funny when you go back and rewatch in the start, you're just like, man, like the show really got it better as it went on. Because man, the first episode, there's a few characters that I wasn't big fan of, and then they grew on me as it grew throughout it. Let's get to the spec report now. And spec's kind of the same way. Like it grows on you after a while. Spec report brought to you by GS Construction. They're always looking for good people, and right now they are hiring. So, you're looking for a great company to work for? Go to Indeed.com and look up GS Construction. From Rogers Sportsnet, Mark Spector joins us. Spec, I see you're down at the cabin right now. How did the taking out of the dock go? Was there any casualties? Was there any injuries?
No, that's the good thing. No injuries. The window's short at this time of year, man. Like guys get off of work and they come out. By the time it's 6 o'clock and you only get till like 20 after 8. It's starting to get dark. So we got everything out. It was cold, but a little hot tub and a little glass of wine and a burger afterwards. I think we were covered pretty well, Jay. We did a pretty good job, I think.
Now, your role in this, Spec, would you be like the fourth line grinder? Are you in the lake freezing it off? Or are you more of the guy who gets to undo it and maybe be kind of like the soft hands guy in the top 6?
No, man. I'm in the lake, taking docks apart, pulling in lifts, the whole thing, pal. You know what? It's grunt work, but I'm a grunt.
Well, so that's good. Those soft little Raider hands. I'm hoping that they didn't, you didn't get any calluses on them or anything after doing some labor for a day or two.
Oh, never mind. You always talk about being a farmer, but I'm not sure you've ever really farmed. Have you really farmed?
Anytime you want to come out to the farm, I would gladly do it. Trust me, old Pearl Gregor, it's a constant work project. Now she decides we're planting more trees all of a sudden, like shoot me now. And so the only good thing is though, she did buy a Kubota tractor, big rototiller last year. So it's much easier than it was when I was a kid. I'll tell you that. Even 20 years ago when me and my buddies Jay and Clark planted about 400 trees. For Pearl all by hand. It's and digging it all. So it is a little bit easier, I will say. But I will say that I think farm work just puts a little hair on your chest. Just it toughens you up a bit because trust me, it's not always glamorous. A lot of the stuff you have to do out there.
No, for sure. Especially when you get involved with animals. If anyone watching on the YouTube channel right now could see my stock right behind me, that's all I got. A golden retriever.
The golden retriever.
Yeah, that's all I got, man. I'm not raising any cows over here, pal.
No, that's good. Do you have any answers? Ask the golden retriever, because my goodness, speaking of playing like dog, like the Toronto Blue Jays, when they face a good team, like I was blown away by how bad their record is against competitive teams. They got spanked again last night by the Rangers, and they're falling out of this. Now they're not out of it completely. They win tonight, they'll be half a game back of the Rangers, but and they got Guzman going the race. So man, if they can't get a win tonight, I don't know when they will, but it's really amazing how bad they've struggled against good teams.
Well, I kind of go back to it's a sports cliche, but it's so true. Your best guys got to be your best guys, right? And Alex Manoah was supposed to be their ace this year, right? He's supposed to be their best pitcher this year. And he has been an absolute disaster. He went down to the minors. He came back. He wasn't any good. They sent him down again. He refused to go, and he's basically quit on the season. So your number one pitcher quit, right? He's gone. So now we go to the offense, and you go to Vladdy. And Vladdy Guerrero Jr. is supposed to be your number one producer. And he has had a brutal season. So there's your two best guys. Bichette's been hurt a bunch when he's played. Not this series, he hasn't been very good, but generally speaking, when he's played, he's been their best hitter. I got no problem with Bichette's season. But your best pitcher and your best hitter didn't give it to you this year. Guess what happens, man? Right? Your team's not near what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Getting Chapman back is another guy that'll probably help them for certain. Varshow's come in, and really it's funny. They traded for him because they want better defense, but his offense just hasn't come close to the guys that they traded away for him. Hasn't matched it at all. So we'll see.
Chapman's a hell of a third baseman. Like, I love watching the guy play ball, but his bat's been cold this year. He hasn't hit the ball this year. So again, the guys you only get so many guys when you build your team that you can call producers. There's always going to be a couple guys in your lineup that are there for their glove, that really aren't great hitters. That's just the way it is. Oh boy.
There's a guard dog, buddy. There's a guard dog.
When those guys don't show, you don't win. That's all there is to it. And they've just had too many guys they wanted to lean on this year that aren't given the support that they counted on. And that's why they're where they're at.
And it's a really good reminder that, when people talk, the Oilers' fourth line, it might be yeah, sure. But here's the difference. You can go out if you're Ken Holland at the trade deadline, and you can find one or two guys if you want to fill in your fourth line. It's not going to be that difficult. And ultimately, the Oilers, the reason why I think they're built to be successful is because McDavid and Draisaitl have shown no reason in 8 years why you'd think, oh, geez, these guys are going to have a down season. Now, they might not match their point totals of last year, but if they don't, I don't think it's going to be a massive reduction, right? Heck, McDavid could have 25 fewer points and he'd still be the leading scorer in the league, most likely. So, that's the advantage that they have. And, you look at now Nugent Hopkins, same thing. I don't expect Nugent Hopkins to score 100 points again, right? His previous career high was 69. But does he become a 75-point player? If he's a 75-point player at 5.1 mil or whatever he's making, you're like, that's fine, right? It's as long as they don't have any key injuries, because their best guys have shown no reason for me to believe that they're going to have any sort of serious slump. Is that naive enough, or is that kind of how you see it?
Oh, no. Listen, at this point, McDavid and Draisaitl, certainly as your top two offensive players, they haven't taken a year off in their careers, right? And I'm with you. Injuries are different. Guys get hurt. That's a whole new ball game. But in terms of being a guy like Vladdy Guerrero that is not hurt and has just lost his swing and is not producing, if it happens to either 29 or 97 this year, it'll be the first time in their career. So certainly no one sees that coming. And, so again, like if we go back to your best players being your best players, the Oilers kind of have that. The luxury that they have is their best guys are massively consistent. And then they're surrounded with, the second tier of Kane and Hyman and Nugent Hopkins, maybe Connor Brown. Let's see what happens here. Those guys have been pretty consistent too, save injury. They're doing their job. They're getting there. So now we're nibbling around the corners. How do the Oilers win now? We're not ever talking about top six. We're talking about the little things. We're talking about keeping pucks out of your net. Okay, goaltending's not a little thing. That's the one place, right? Are you confident, Jay, that they've got a goalie that can win a Stanley Cup on this team right now?
You know what, Spec? I don't know, because if you would have asked me at the start of last season, name 30 goalies in the league that you think could win a Stanley Cup, and Aiden Hill wouldn't have been on my list of 30. And I don't think it would have been on anybody's. No offense to Aiden Hill.
Nobody's
just
list.
That way, right? So that position, man, I don't know. Could Stuart Skinner get hot for 6 weeks? Could Jack Campbell get hot enough for 6 weeks? Yeah, I think they could. right? They just, and so they really just need one of those guys to not, soil the sheets. And I think the advantage is I don't like Stuart Skinner started 48 games last year. Jack Campbell started 34. If there's no injury, I actually think the starts will be closer this year, which will benefit Skinner because then you can ride him longer. Because the number one thing we've seen outside of Vasilevsky is you don't win with your starting goaltender playing 50, 60 games in the regular season and then playing all in the playoffs, unless you're like a future Hall of Famer like Vasilevsky. So if Stuart Skinner only starts 45 or 43 games this year, I actually think that benefits Edmonton come playoff time.
Okay, that's fair. But the thing that I never get, and I didn't get it last year, is you roughly split the regular season. Close to a split. It's a 60-40 split in the regular season. It works for your team. You win a bunch of games. Everyone's happy with it. Then the playoffs start, and you play the same guy every single night.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why do you do that?
Yeah. It's a terrible idea in Boston, right?
Didn't work in Boston. Didn't work in Edmonton.
Yeah. And look at Vegas. Aiden Hill didn't start the playoffs. He came in because Lauren Brossoit got injured. So, you know what?
Through.
I said it in the playoffs, and I said it before the games. I would have started Jack Campbell in game 6. And they may not have won. But, you could have made the argument. Now, they won game 4. So I get why they wouldn't have done it then. But I really thought there was an option because you got a young goalie. He's now started 11 straight games, the most games he's ever started consecutively in his life. And I do think that
was running out of steam, man.
Yeah. Right? Mental fatigue more than physical, I think, is the bigger challenge in the playoffs for a goalie. Sure.
Stu Skinner was running out of steam last year. Everyone likes Stu Skinner as a young goalie. He's you finally got a young guy in town here he's an all-star rookie goalie last year. It's all there. Like, oh my goodness, we've been waiting a long time for a guy like Stu Skinner. So don't get me wrong when I say that, last year I could see from, the Rogers Place press box is a country mile away from the ice. Okay. Right. A country mile. You could see plain as day. This guy was fading and fading and fading as each game went on. He was starting to lose his edge, probably more mentally than physically, but it was going. It wasn't going to start going north. The fact that he didn't play game 6 was, in my opinion, a coaching error. If we could see it, you could see it. I could see it from 100 miles away. Obviously, they chose loyalty over what their eyeballs were showing them because they got to see the same thing. But and this isn't hindsight. The Stu Skinner's game was going like this. They kept running him out there, and he ended up with, I believe, an 883 save percentage in the playoffs. You don't win jack with 883.
Yeah. And, hey, it's a rookie goalie. I expect him to be better. But I think as an organization, you have to make that tough decision. You're right. If you're 60-40 all year long, to suddenly go 100% might not be ideal. Spec, enjoy it. Like
he needed more support, pal.
Pardon?
Sorry? He needed more support. He needed more support. He needed someone to tell him, hey, take a night off, Stu. Come back strong. We're not giving up on you. We're giving you a night off.
Yeah, totally fair. Spec, we will chat with you tomorrow. Have a good night.
All right, Jay.
That's Mark Spector in the Spec Report, brought to you by GS Construction. The Con Man is up next. We're going to go a little deep dive in fantasy for tonight, little game day fantasy, and the upcoming weekend for the NFL. Also, a few NHL questions that we want to get to. Of course, the NHL training camp is a week upon us, and I know some of you are already doing your drafts, so we'll get into that when we return on the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440 and live on OrdersNation.com, OrdersNation.com's YouTube page.
Thinking about solar power? Action Electrical wants to eliminate your entire home or business power bill and keep more cash in your pocket. With effective paybacks in 5 to 9 years, give solar a chance with Action and put your lazy roof to work. Alberta is the second highest province for the amount of full sunlight hours, and with system life exceeding 25 years, solar power is like a McDavid draft pick. Still have questions about solar power? Contact the professionals at actionelectrical.net today. That's actionelectrical.net.
The job isn't done until the last load is hauled, and having a semi-trailer out of commission is not an option. Whether replacing or adding to your convoy, Edmonton Trailer has a huge inventory of new and used semi-trailers, trusted by the gravel, logging, oil field, fluids, and freight industries. Find a trailer right for you online or at one of their 3 locations. For sales, service, parts, rental, and finance, when you're in it for the long haul, Edmonton Trailer.
Building or renovating, you want to work with someone who sees and understands your vision. BIE Engineering is a family-owned, experienced structural engineering consulting firm serving commercial and residential clients in Edmonton and surrounding area. Homeowner or large company, they'll work with you to help see your ideas through. BIE Engineering can help prevent problems, deliver solutions, and minimize your risk. BIE Engineering. Request a quote for your project today. Visit BIEENG.com.
There's nothing like having a little skin in the game to make things interesting. But when a little skin becomes more than you can afford to lose, it's time to take a break from sports betting. Set a budget and stick to it. If you gamble, use your game sense.
Hey, Alberta drivers. New rules are in place to protect roadside workers. Now, when you see first responders, tow trucks, or highway maintenance vehicles with flashing lights on the side of the road, you must move over if it's safe to do so. If you can't move over, slow down to at least 60 kilometers an hour. Help protect Alberta's roadside workers. It's the law. Learn more at alberta.ca/roadworkersafety. A message from the Government of Alberta.
How low can they go? At Buy Low Foods, they can go way low. Get incredible savings on great products with the lowest buy. Only at Buy Low Foods.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Richie Valens for you. Great song. Great song. Gone way too soon, unfortunately. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440. The text line is fired up. 833-401-1440 in our Jiffy Lube inbox. You can always email us. Gregor, sports1440.ca. Also, and Connor Halley at just Connor at sports1440.ca. Let's get to our fantasy report brought to you by Next Gen Transportation, a heavy haul transport provider, 100% locally owned and operated, and they are a huge sponsor of numerous youth sports teams. They love giving back to the community. NextGenTransportation.com as Connor Halley joins us. And Cons, it is when you look at it tonight, there's some easy ones if you were looking for some guys that you would expect to have decent nights. Obviously, Goddard's going to be much better than he was in game one, because it's virtually impossible to be worse when you don't he only had one ball thrown to him, but he didn't even catch any. I look at Addison, and are you expecting a big night from him because Slay's going to be on Jefferson and they have injuries and basically are now down to backups in the secondary to cover him?
Yeah, James Bradbury out with a concussion. He's going to miss this game tonight, and you nailed it there. When Darius Slay is going to be on Justin Jefferson, you know he's going to be blanketing him. I mean, it opens it up there for a guy like Jordan Addison, who can really stretch the field. He had a nice touchdown on the post route in their week one game. Only at 46 yards and 4 receptions, but I think that with the game plan being eliminate Justin Jefferson from the Minnesota Vikings, Jordan Addison is a guy who could potentially step up and benefit not only Bradbury out, but free safety Reed Blankenship out with a rib injury, which is kind of cool because that means Sidney Brown, the Canadian safety from Illinois, might get a little more reps. So watch for him out there. I believe he's wearing number 21 for the Philadelphia Eagles. But yeah, Jordan Addison, I think, is a guy who could potentially benefit there. Also, if you look at tight end TJ Hawkinson for the Minnesota Vikings, he had 9 targets last week, 8 receptions, only 35 yards. So yeah, I mean, he wasn't stretching the field by any means, but clearly he and Kirk Cousins have some chemistry going there. So you could also look at TJ Hawkinson for Minnesota tonight. Oh yeah, I think he's going to be a big part of their offense. And if you're in a PPR league, you're getting 8 catches, and even if it's only 35 yards, you're still coming away with 11.5 points, right? So it's not too terrible. Now, looking ahead to the weekend, it was one of the most exciting games of the weekend. I thought the Chargers and Miami. Unfortunately for your team, they lose. But now they're hosting the Chargers. Sorry, you look at this week, and
it's not as tough as an opponent, but it's far from a weak opponent in Tennessee. Two teams that want to be better. They're on the road. How concerned are you about the Titans, or do you think this is a good matchup offensively, especially with Eckler being a game time decision?
Yeah, I mean, that's the really the big one there. Austin Eckler, just such a big part of this team's run game, and the offensive line has been so much improved from years past where, you really need to get Austin Eckler going. Joshua Kelly, I think if he's out there and you can grab him, he might be a nice little pickup in fantasy football. But the one thing that makes me a little more confident is that the Tennessee Titans don't have Tyreek Hill. I mean, he was an absolute nightmare for me last week. He was unguardable. Like they couldn't stop him, and it could have been worse because Tua Tagovailoa, the arm strength was just a little bit too short at times because Tyreek was deep, wide open once, Jalen Waddle at the same time. The Tennessee Titans are such a well-coached team. Mike Vrabel's going to have them ready. It'll be interesting to see what happens with DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's still trying to prove that, he can play. He was offended by some of the offers he got apparently in the offseason. So he's going to try to make some plays. We'll see if they go after J.C. Jackson in a similar fashion that the Miami Dolphins did. And then Derrick Henry. I mean, I think he proved last week that he's back. I don't know how long he'll last. Obviously, longevity is going to be a question for him just because he's a running back with a lot of carries in the past. And there's always going to be those questions about injuries. But I'm a little bit concerned. I think the Chargers offense, they've shown that they can make some plays. Offensive line looks good, clearly committed to the run game. But the biggest thing, there's no Tyreek Hill there, Greg, or that I don't have nightmares about dealing with him for the rest of the season unless they meet in the playoffs, because that guy, with what they're scheming up down in Miami, having him in motion, by the time the ball snapped, he's already running about 60-70% of his speed, and then he just turns on the afterburners. That's a nightmare for opposing defenses.
Well, 15 targets in week one for Tyreek Hill. I don't think it's going away.
No, and watch for Jalen Waddle as well. He can stretch the field. When you put a little too much coverage or emphasis on Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle can burn you too.
Yeah, like I strongly considered Tyreek Hill at number one pick.
I mean, would have paid off week one
in a PPR league. Like honestly, I think if he stays healthy, and I know there's some concern about his quarterback, but who knows? Health is a hard thing, but he, him and Waddle, it's a tough matchup as you mentioned. Like how do you slow that guy down? Like. He might be he's probably the fastest receiver, and he's fast, but he's also quick, right? Because there's fast guys, and then he's really quick laterally, but then he can blow by you in a straight line. And it's hard at this point not to think that, easy is a must start, but like that guy could be the highest scoring guy every week at his position.
Yeah. And I mean,
it wouldn't be a shock.
McDaniel's there in Miami. Like he comes off Kyle Shanahan's system, right? Where Shanahan, look at the success he's had without big name quarterbacks. I mean, Brock Purdy, a 7th round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, can run that offense and do it efficiently. It's not where you necessarily have to make amazing throws and stretch the field, but they find creative ways to get the ball into the receiver's hands. Deebo Samuel had a lot of success with it a couple of years ago. It's running in motion. It's taking advantage of matchups. And yeah, he's an absolute threat to go deep all the time. It's crazy. And he's a good receiver. I mean, we kind of joked at the beginning of his career, like, oh, he's a return man. That's not the case now. He's a legit receiver.
Now, I know you guys are getting more. You had it today on the show in Fantasy Frenzy, talking about the NHL. And as you get closer to the season, and from the experts and from yourself and you and Brandon, have you guys found because there's lots of different leagues. Like fantasy football has standard, half PPR, full PPR, and then there's a few other ones. NHL, man, it's wild. In the type of rules you can have, the scoring structure, some go as depth and they're throwing in block shots and everything. What's the consensus from the guys and people that play it as far as maybe like the most enjoyable rules to have?
Well, what we learned today is the first thing when you're getting into a hockey pool or fantasy hockey, know the rules, know the scoring system. We got a couple of horror stories where, Ryan Reeves was the most valuable player in the league because he hit and fought. Someone told us a story about how in the league they were in a couple of years ago, a fight was worth more than a hat trick. So, I think that's probably not the popular one that people want to get into. I think you want to minimize that and emphasize the skill when you get into your fantasy hockey leagues. And that's probably the one that people want to go with. But it seems like it varies. I mean, I'm looking forward to cracking into this a little bit more when it comes to hockey. I've had a lot of experience in fantasy football. And fantasy hockey is something we kind of dabbled with, me and the friends. Haven't got too deep into it, but I will say one thing we do want to do on the program, similar to the survivor pool that we created, we're going to do a hockey pool where it'll just be, you pick a player from each tier. We'll open it up to everybody, get some prize packages going for that. But that's going to be coming on later here. But from what a lot of our listeners said, anything where you're not emphasizing too many points on fights and hits, maybe a little bit more enjoyable.
Well, if you look at hits, right? Like, so think about from a point perspective, Connor McDavid had 150 points. Now that was the most, right? Like how many guys even had 100 points?
Yeah.
Right. I think it was 10, maybe 9 last year, 10 or 11, either one. You look at hits, there's 4 guys who had 300 hits, right? But then it drops down, right? There's only 9 guys who had 250, right? Then you go to 200 hits, there's only 28. So there is still there. And so now you would obviously not make it 1 point per hit, I wouldn't think, but you can, I see why you can introduce that, because when you get to later round picks, you're like, man, do I want to pick a guy who's going to score 10 goals because he's a third line guy, never gets power play? Like you kind of know what they're going to get for the most part. Like, yeah, there's the odd guy. So I understand why a league would say, okay, wait a sec. This is a way to make the late round picks a little bit more intriguing if there's some sort of weighted point percentage for now. Maybe it's a quarter point per hit, right? So then if you're but then even then, if you're a 200 hit guy, well, that's 50 points.
Yeah.
Right. But again, as I said, there's only 50 players who had 175 hits last year in the NHL. And I know that hits can be a little questionable from place to place, but then you can research and you can look and say, okay, if they play on this team, like the Columbus Blue Jackets, a lot of guys with hits. Now they're a bad team. Right. So they don't have the puck as much. So there's that. And then there are certain buildings that are a little bit looser in what they determine a hit or not. So I think it's good to have it, but you're right. As long as it's not overvalued to the point where, it'd be suddenly saying a kicker in fantasy football, if he kicks a 40-yarder, he gets 12 points. Well, you'd be like, what? Well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get why, now fighting's down, but you can't have a guy who fights 10 times and suddenly that's the same as a guy who scores 50 goals. Well, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it, though. I mean, I guess it's how in-depth do you want to go with your scoring system? You could probably simplify it, right, and just go base it off points. But it is interesting. Like a guy like Radko Gudas all of a sudden has way more fantasy value because you factor in hits and, potentially block shots, things like that. So, yeah, I mean, it is kind of cool that you can make it a little bit more in-depth. Make people actually have to study those later rounds instead of just looking at the point column.
When we return, his former roommate, teammate of Terry Ryan, he's the head coach of the Spruce Grove Saints as they are looking to defend their title in the North Division. They open up at home tomorrow and Saturday. Ryan Marsh will join us to wrap up the Thursday edition of the Gregor Show live on Sports 1440 and for those watching on Oilers Nation YouTube.
McCafe now has cold brew beverages and they're smooth. Made with 100% Arabica beans, steeped cold and slow for an irresistibly smooth taste. McCafe cold brew beverages for a limited time only at participating McDonald's.
Legacy Heating and Cooling is your supplier of maximum comfort, bringing you the cool AC you need. You just have to
call Legacy. Call Legacy.
For comfort at night when the hot air suffocates you.
Call Legacy. Call Legacy.
For comfort in your wallet with no
Portions of this hour brought to you by Papa John's. Try their new one-topping garlic or spicy garlic epic stuffed crust for $21.99 for a limited time, only at papajohns.ca.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
5:40 on a Thursday afternoon. Man, loaded show. I love it. So much going on in the sporting world. Games starting all over the place. Of course, the AJHL drops the puck on another season. Tomorrow, the Saints will be raising the banner tomorrow night. And of course, they're home Friday and Saturday. Get your tickets at sprucegrovesaints.ca. And we are joined now by the head coach of the Saints, Ryan Marsh, who also, of course, former roommate of our Monday and Thursday co-host, Terry Ryan. Marshy, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing great, Jason. That brings a smile to my face hearing that.
Oh, well, we had TR on the show, and I'm like, we might have to get you on just to have a story time about. He was telling us about his car that he had in Tri-Cities, and he painted his number on it. And, oh man, you've met a lot of characters in your hockey career. It'd be hard to meet one with as much character as TR.
Oh, you can say that again. Yeah, he's got quite the life that he's lived. Some excellent stories. He actually. When he was super young, he actually billeted with my parents.
That's what he was telling us.
Some crazy stuff there, but really fun to play with too. He was a great player, and he certainly kept the room on their toes.
Now, tell me the story. Did his father not convince you? You were going to go play NCAA, and he convinced you to go play Major Junior?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that there. He was. He had come out from Newfoundland to coach. Or first of all, it was Terry that was coming out to play, and Terry Senior ended up being out there and ended up eventually coaching me as well. So there was some influence there. He wouldn't have been the only one, but he definitely had some influence on it, and that's the route that Terry was going. Terry Jr. was going. So I ended up making a late decision, which is crazy because I've coached on both sides of that coin as well now.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. And now, of course, as the head coach of the Saints, you guys are ready to drop the puck on another season tomorrow night. And the Saints have been one of the class organizations in the AJHL for many years, highly competitive all the time. Everybody's expecting a similar. Sherwood Park, I think a lot of people, they were finished third in the North last year. And, we could have like that old fashioned rivalry, the Crusaders and the Saints, potentially 1-2 in the North, which would be great for those two franchises. But for you guys specifically, Ryan, of course, your first year now as the head coach in Spruce Grove. Kind of tell me about kind of what's been your plan to make sure that the players get to know, to understand you, and that there's a comfort level and a respect level between you and your team.
Well, first and foremost, it was a great opportunity that came up over the course of the summer, and I'm stepping into a really good situation, like you said, a team that's in a franchise that's been near the top of the league for a number of years. So the team was built and ready for success, and so I'm stepping into like I said, a good situation. And more for me was just to get to know the staff and the players, and to build on the foundation and the legacy that's already here. I'll put my own little spin on it, and we've talked about some of those slight changes, but we're really just building on the structure and the foundation that's been put in place here.
So you always want to put your stamp on things, but doesn't mean you have to reinvent the wheel by any stretch of the imagination. So how would you feel like for fans of the Saints, what can they expect as far as a Marsh-led team?
Well, I'm not sure it's going to be a whole lot different than some of the teams they've seen over the last number of years. It's a team that's going to be, hard to play against. We want to play with high tempo, high pace, a strong 5-on-5 game with excellent special teams, a team that's disciplined but still very competitive. And we're just, like I said, looking forward to trying to build on the foundation that's been in place here for a long time.
It looks like you're going to start the campaign with three rookie blue liners. One of them, of course, 6'5", 204-pounder Will Brophy, who is pretty big players, an import from Massachusetts. Tell us about that, and will you have like each rookie in a different pairing? You're gonna have 2 rookies on a pairing, or is it still kind of a work in progress as far as who plays with who?
Yeah, it's currently right now. We've got our veteran guys playing together. Will's playing with Nathan Hawkins, who is another first-year player tomorrow night. But it's early, and we'll adjust as we go. Will's come to us, like you said, from the Eastern U.S. Prep school out there. He's a long, lanky right shot defenseman that skates really well for his size. One of the first things that jumped out to me when I first saw him, and so we were really fortunate to be able to recruit him to get him out west, and really excited to get him into his first game in the AJHL tomorrow. We have a lot of right shots back there, which is usually it's the opposite. We have one left shot tomorrow night in the lineup, and the rest are all right shots. So usually it's the other way around, but we're excited about our young group and also our veteran guys as well.
Now, what about your forward group up front? Obviously, you have a fair amount of returning veterans, but you're always, you're going to bring in some young players. What's your philosophy on that? Like, you don't want to overwhelm young guys, but at the same time, you don't want young guys not playing. So how do you balance that? And what's kind of the conversation with you and the GM, Rob Skluck, when it comes to, development for your young players?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's finding that balance. I think we've got a lot of depth up front, a lot of really good forwards. So there's some tough decisions night in and night out on, who's playing with who, but also who's playing in the lineup. And those are good problems to have as a coaching staff. We've got a group of forwards that are now stepping into more featured roles, is how I would put it. The players that led the team last year have moved on, have graduated on to the next level. So our group of forwards are, stepping into a little bit more featured roles, and I think they're all super excited. And the goal would be to try to play, all 4 of those lines and get that rolling, give everyone some opportunity, find ways for them, if they're not on the power play, to potentially be penalty killers and just, establish some roles that way. But the goal is to try to get everyone rolling through our lines and our D partners. And a lot of times that's the best way to develop. But obviously game to game and shift to shift, period to period, you're going to have to make some adjustments. But that's certainly the goal with our forward group, is to utilize our depth.
Head coach of the Spruce Grove Saints, Ryan Marsh, joins us. They will raise the banner tomorrow night as being the North Division champions in the AJHL last season, lost in the AJHL final. And, you mentioned some of those players, like, and there's always lots of pressure, but guys welcome it. If you're an offensive player, you kind of know, hey, that's part of my job and role. Are you a guy as a coach, Ryan? Do you like to stick with duos necessarily rather than trios? I think it's hard for having one line just stick together all the time. Kind of what's your model when it comes to your forward group and how often you change, even if you have the same 12 forwards, or how often you change in combinations?
I think it just depends on your group. It could change depending on the group that you have. I believe in chemistry. I believe there needs to be a time for that chemistry to build, and whether it's 2 players on a line or all 3, that depends on the group. And I want to give them opportunity to be together for a little bit of time here, especially early on, to allow that chemistry to grow. But at the same time, during the course of a game, if you're not feeling that maybe that we're a little bit off, the energy is a little bit off, and we need to make a change, then we'll certainly do that. But the goal right now is to give this group an opportunity to grow a little bit and build that chemistry. We've brought in some new faces that weren't here last year, combining them with some of the guys that were here. So we're excited to see how it all comes together. I think especially early in the year, you need to be patient, and you need to allow some of that chemistry to take place.
And lastly, the banner raising ceremony, Ryan. It's as much of an honor for the players who were on the team last year and motivation potentially for the coach and the guys who are now joining it, or is there a little bit of pressure to say, man, we got to live up to that?
I think it's just an exciting evening. Just the fact that you're able to to put a banner up in your rink is always a special time. So we need to embrace that and use the positive energy from that. And we talk about playing for the legacy is something that we talk about a lot. And so what better way to go out tomorrow than to play for that legacy after that banner goes up. So we're super excited. We're really proud of that team last year that had just an excellent season, both during the regular season and a great playoff run. And we're gonna play for the legacy tomorrow for sure.
Well, it should be rocking. Be a packed house tomorrow night. Everybody loves to come back and celebrate when there is a really good, successful season. So enjoy that, and best of luck this season. We'll talk to you throughout the year.
Sounds great, Jason. Good to see you guys back on the air, and all the best to you.
You betcha. That is Ryan Marsh, head coach of the Spruce Grove Saints. He was actually on the ice with some of the captain skates last week, helping to run them a few days because obviously you couldn't have NHL coaches around. So he was there. Obviously, you're allowed your goalie coach. Justin Schwartz is on the ice, and they also had Dave Pelche was allowed out there, but none of the Woodcroft, Gulletson, Manson, none of those guys are allowed out. So they want some coaches to organize some things, and Ryan Marsh was out there for a bit, of course, formerly with the Edmonton Oil Kings. We are close to wrapping up a busy Thursday, man. Con Man and Brad are doing a great job with guests. If you missed any of our guests on the show today, you can always get the podcast anywhere you download your podcast, Spotify, Apple. They're all there, of course. So you can go to sports1440.ca. You can see it there. Individual interviews, if you just want a certain interview, go to jasongregor.com, and we have them there. Pete Bercich, former Vikings coach and player, was setting up the Thursday nighter. We had Robin Brownlee, Tony Marinaro talking Montreal Canadiens, Speck, of course, Ryan Marsh. We also had Livingston in the Racing Report, and Kerry Ryan for 2 hours. He had some beauty stories. You definitely don't want to miss that in hours 3, I guess the second and third hours of the show today from 3 until 5. Tomorrow, Brett the Hitman Hart will be amongst many of our guests on a Positive Friday edition. Very much looking forward to that. It should be fantastic. It's exciting. Enjoy Thursday night. Go see the brand man, the Duke, as Carius calls him. He is live at Manning Canadian Brewhouse. That has been the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, saying good night from the eWell studio, EWEL.ca. Have yourselves a great night. Enjoy the football. Let's see if the Jays can get a win, for goodness sakes. Go Goddard. Get some catches, Goddard. I need a bounce back after a tough first week. Here is the Con Man and a Sports 1440 update brought to you by eWell. From LED lighting audits and retrofits to design, built distribution systems, eWell services can give you the edge you need to impress your clients. EWEL.ca. Good night.
Week 2 in the NFL kicks off with a Thursday night matchup in Philadelphia. The 1-0 Eagles hosting the 0-1 Minnesota Vikings. Kickoff 6:15. You can join Brandon Douglas down at the Canadian Brewhouse Manning location. That's 155th and 37th Street. The Ottawa Senators have signed forward Josh Bailey to a PTO. The 33-year-old has played his entire 15-year career with the New York Islanders, recording 8 goals and 17 assists in 64 games last season. Major League Baseball, the Jays in action out in Toronto, currently trailing the Rangers 3-2. That one in the bottom of the second. Elsewhere, Yankees on top of the Red Sox 5-2 in game 2 of their doubleheader. The Rays trail the Orioles 1-0. And the White Sox and Twins scoreless in the top of the second. Finals from earlier today. In game 1 of their doubleheader, it was the Red Sox over the Yankees 5-0. Tigers beating up on the Reds 8-2. The Pirates blanked the Nationals 2-0. Marlins fall to the Brewers 4-2, and the Mets over the Diamondbacks 11-1. One game postponed due to weather conditions. The Rockies and Giants, they'll make that game up on Saturday. We're done for the day. Carius is back tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. with guest host Eddie Steele.